Sword of Coming Chapter 1226. Chapter 1226 Husband. Please raise your eyebrows as speeding wuxia boat spreads out the mountains, rivers and land like a magnificent picture scroll. As soon as the ferry left the Beiwei boundary, Lu Xianying shouted to Qin Pingan at the top of his voice. Qin Pingan, who was sleeping on the table, stood up and called Wei Bo by his name several times in his heart. He ignored him and walked out of the house, came to the bow of the ship, and called Wei Bo by his name again. Wei Bo soon appeared on the ship. In fact, when he heard the god's call, Wei Bo immediately breathed a sigh of relief in Piyun Mountain. This revenge for Qin Pingan has been brewing for many years, especially the one against Ma Xuanhuan. Become a god. Because Wei Bo was in the Shinto, he was more worried than those who knew about this in Luapa Mountain, such as the old cook and Jing Dafeng. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was on tenterhooks. Qin Pingan had taken off his boots and was sitting cross-legged on the bow of the boat, shaking a red gourd. He didn't drink but just listened to the sound of the wine sloshing around. Relieved, Wei Bo leaned against the railing and asked curiously, "Did the Jisa Peak Sword Room not receive the Feijin message from the Deli Xing department?" Qin Pingan said, "I received it. I have read it. I am too busy with business to bother to reply." Wei Bao was furious. "Just because you didn't reply, the entire Dali criminal department had to carefully try to figure out the thoughts of you, the imperial preceptor. Even His Majesty the Emperor had to ask the rights department to send a message to Paiyanshan, so that he had to go to the penal department Yamen in person. What kind of thing is this? Isn't the Emperor anxious about the eunuchs?" Qin Pingan forced a smile, shook his fists a few times and apologized. "One family doesn't speak the language of two families." Wei Bo asked, "How to arrange them?" Qin Pingan obviously had an idea and said, "For the time being, let's put these 16 people in the Tiaoyu Mountain. Whether they are martial artists or monks, they are all in the same mountain. In a year or two, if we really send another group, sword cultivators are still the same, there is no need to send them to the sword worship platform. No matter how big the Tiaoyu Mountain site is, just throwing 30 people into it is not a big deal. If I remember correctly, there are actually many ready-made buildings in the mountain with large and small houses. There are more than 100 rooms, which is enough. And since it is close to Luolu Mountain, I may also open Fuyao Lu as a personal dojo. It's actually easy to choose a person to teach boxing. Jing Dafeng has been teaching boxing at Bianhan Palace for many years in Wuxia xianxia. But the choice of preachers is a little embarrassing. Of course Qin Pingan can teach, but he is definitely not suitable. After all, it is not the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Here in Haoran Xianxia, the path of cultivation, whether it is practicing Taoism or learning boxing, if the starting point is too high, it will not be all good for this group of 16 people who are just starting out. As for the white-haired boy who is now the genealogist of Luolu Mountain, it is actually said that she is a scholar and a heavenly person. It is not an exaggeration to say that she can also teach. But she has a special status and is still inappropriate. Wei Bo took out a booklet from his sleeve and recorded the detailed files of those 16 people. Unexpectedly, Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "I won't read it." Normally, Wei Bo would have complained a few words, something like throwing away the shopkeeper and pretending to be addicted. But looking at Qin Pingan's haggard face at this moment, Wei Bo could bear it and forget it. Qin Pingan said, "In addition to Jing Dafeng being responsible for teaching boxing, you can also let Sun Yuanji be his deputy. Teaching boxing to others and helping others to box is actually a kind of learning boxing in itself." Wei Bo was stunned for a moment, nodded and said with a smile, "Good idea." Wei Bo said, "Lu Yong and Jing Qingjia are both in the mountains." Qin Pingan asked in confusion, "What is Master Lu doing?" Wei Bo said, "Help Zhao Zhu get a guest status with your Luapa Mountain, the kind that has a seat in the Jisa Peak Patriarch Hall." Qin Pingan said helplessly, "This also requires Master Lu to travel across continents and visit Luapa Mountain in person? Is this a special trip to congratulate you and give you gifts?" Wei Bo laughed it off. Qin Pingan said softly, "She has an extra surname. Gulingyan Zheng Qingjia. For the monks of the Wild Demon Clan, adding a surname to oneself is not a joke. Her nickname is Xuanhu, and her nickname is Five Flowers Scholar. In the wild world, she is one of the few upper-level 5 monks who doesn't like fighting by nature and of course is not really good at fighting." Wei Bo smiled and said, "According to what she said, she recognized her ancestors with Mr. Xiaoma. The other thing is to find Gu Ken to return to the clan." Qin Pingan asked a strange question. Did she go up the mountain alone? Wei Bo was puzzled, but he didn't bother to ask more. Just one person. However, anyone who is in the Jade Pu realm will almost always have a trick up their sleeves. But how many people and objects can be carried depends on the skill. Qin Pingan asked no more questions. Because there is a big or small secret involved here. When Qin Pingan was guarding the city alone, there was once a chariot with a group of wild female cultivators, Yin, heading north just to take a look at the young hermit official from a distance. Among the chariots, in addition to the descendants of the great demon, there was a female cultivator with a genealogy who was born in Jinsui city. It seemed that she was the most valued direct disciple of the city lord Xuanhu, and she had the true inheritance. Weibo asked, "Do you need me to chat with Tong Wenchang?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "No, I have a better relationship with Tong Shinjun than you do with him." Weibo laughed and said, "Then blame me for being sentimental." Without waiting for Shanju Qin to explain a few words, the night-wandering god returned to Piyun Mountain. Qin Pingan returned to the house angrily, took out 3 gold and copper coins from his sleeves, put them gently on the table and arranged them in order: the Spring Festival coins, the support coins and the victory coins. An inch of time is worth an inch of gold, but an inch of gold cannot buy an inch of time. At the foot of the mountain, this is a word of encouragement to learn. On the mountain it has a different meaning. This gold is gold and copper coins. Master Yu Laozhen was indeed vigorous and resolute in his work. After attending the canonization ceremony of the Confucian Temple at Piyun Mountain, he returned to the Tianwai Xinghe dojo. However, Yu Xian left a message that within a month at most, there would be someone from Taofu Mountain to lead him. He came to Luapa Mountain with 1,000 gold and copper coins, half of which he borrowed and half of which he gave to Qin Pingan. 500 of them were lent without interest, and he could pay them back at any time. In particular, Yu Xian also took the initiative to forgive the 300 debts Tianwai previously lent to Qin Pingan. So the real gap between the 1,500 pieces that Jing Juzhong said and what Qin Pingan needed to improve the rank of Feijian was actually very small, only 200 pieces. And this does not include the bag of gold and copper coins sent by Lu Su. It's just that those 36 gold and copper coins just made up a set of 36 heavenly gangs of the Big Dipper stars, which is extremely rare and priceless. If Qin Pingan just refined it into the water of the long river of time, it would be too much of a waste of nature. But it can be refined into a large formation without the need to ask the gods to come down. 36 divine generals are responsible for sitting on the banks of the long river of time. He also made a considerable amount of gold and fine copper coins from Yu Shiwu, which could have made up for the gap. However, since the two sides had temporarily become allies, Qin Pingan didn't have the nerve to stay. At first, Yu Shiwu refused to accept it. Saying that it was of no use, Qin Pingan tried to persuade Yu Shiwu to take it back with great difficulty. Thinking about it now, it turned out that he was not good at studying and did not truly understand the essence of Huolong Zhenren's business advice. When doing business with others, you can't be too thin-skinned. In fact, in the previous battle with Ma Kuxuan, the fake Zhou body was made of gold and copper coins, 1,000? 2,000. Where did Ma Kuxuan get so many gold and copper coins? From beginning to end of the fight, Qin Pingan never asked. In fact, after Ma Kuxuan was killed with a sword, this guy even gave up his soul at the last moment. It was obvious that he wanted to keep these gold and copper coins in the caged bird. Whether it was a relic that Ma Kuxuan couldn't take away or a trophy that was worth a battle, Qin Pingan confiscated it. Instead, Qin Pingan used these remaining gold and copper coins to help Ma Kuxuan open up a new path. In addition to protecting part of his soul and being reincarnated, he also helped Ma Kuxuan and his current body and the people he once belonged to. The connection with the divine way in the old heaven was completely disconnected. Qin Pingan separated a piece of his mind, entered the small world of caged birds, and came to the arch bridge at the foot of the immortal mansion ruins. His mind became one with the young Taoist priest. 3 figures arrived hand in hand, and Yu Shiwu asked directly, "What's going on?" In addition to Yu Shiwu, there are also the barbaric female cultivator Xiao Xing, and the Mafu cook Yu Qing, or the former cherry green Yi Gong Sun Lingling. Obviously it was not just Yu Shiwu, they were also curious about why there was such a big commotion, and there was a feeling of the world falling apart. During the fight with Ma Kuxuan, Qin Pingan was worried that there would be complications, so he detained the 3 Yu Shiwu here, temporarily losing their authority to travel freely between different worlds. Qin Pingan did not explain the detailed reasons, but just told Yu Shiwu a rough result. Yu Shiwu was stunned and speechless and then murmured, Okay, this is best. Xiao Xing originally wanted to make a sarcastic comment about how he could achieve great things with a soft heart. But before she could say anything, his body instantly fell into the long river and almost drowned. Gong Sun Lingling was quite relieved by this. After all, the crazy was a wicked person. The next moment Xiaoxing, who had regained his freedom, came out of thin air behind Gongsun Lingling, rubbed her ears and temples, and then pressed against her breasts. On the back, Xiaoxing quickly stretched out a white lotus root-like arm, wrapped it around Gongsun Lingling's waist, and suddenly lifted it up a little, grabbing a heavy weight on his chest. The young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown frowned slightly. Xiaoxing stopped, tiptoed a little, swept back, sat on the bridge railing, stretched out his hand to rub the top of a pillar, and said with a charming smile, "It's about the same size." Chen Ping ignored this and said, "Many illusory worlds are seriously damaged. I will have to thank you for your hard work to repair them." Xiaoxing's eyes were hot, and he looked at the cook's bulging waist and skirt, which was stretched out. The curves were amazing and full. She stretched out her fingers to touch her scarlet lips and said delicately, "Master Guan, this servant and you can discuss something. Why not reward her to me, and I will work with you wholeheartedly, and it won't take long to keep her and nurse her to be docile." Qin Pingan narrowed his eyes and said nothing. Although the sky and the earth are dark and unclear, a bright red color oozes out. Xiaoxing immediately knew how powerful it was and kept silent, not daring to make any mistakes again. Heaven and man sensed that if Qin Pingan is the well-deserved god here, then his mood fluctuations will be announced to the heaven and earth in different celestial phenomena. Qin Pingan looked at Gongsun Lingling. "If she dares to pester you again and delay your progress in creating a world full of gold and color, I will let her learn how to write the word regret." Gongsun Lingling said, "I can work here willingly, but I need a salary that has nothing to do with fairy money." Qin Pingan said curiously, "Tell me about it." Gongsun Lingling said, "If I can guarantee that she will not continue to pester me." Xiaoxing smiled brightly and was not afraid at all. "When the time comes, I will not wear clothes all day long, and it doesn't matter if I don't touch your body." Qin Pingan was speechless. Yushiwa's scalp was even numb. Gongsun Lingling said, "Then let me change my request. Instead, let me provide more of this thing, and let her have a period of time every day where she can't help herself." Qin Pingan said helplessly, "You all go and see the doctor. Before that, everyone should do their own thing and don't meet again. I will help you set up a layer of restrictions so close and thousands of miles away." Yushirwu was stunned and frightened. Xiaoxing covered his mouth and smiled sweetly. "Yu Qing, sooner or later you will be unable to bear the loneliness and take the initiative to have with me." Qin Pingan remembered something and said, "Gongsun Lingling, I just met Xiao Pu and Lu Taoji in Chongyang Temple in the capital. In the future, when the time is right, I can help you restore your identity as Cherry Chingy." Gongsun Lingling remained silent, clenching his fists and just nodded. Qin Pingan said, "Yushirwu, let's talk while walking." Yushirwu wished he could get away from those two girls quickly and follow Qin Pingan up the sacred road. On both sides of the mountain road, there was still the oozing scene of corpses hanging with horizontal swords. Compared to Xiaoxing and Gongsun Lingling, Yushirwu was the last one to enter Qin Pingan's state of mind dojo. As he became more and more familiar with the basics of this place, the more he admired Qin Pingan's construction methods. He was amazed and eye-opening. Especially when Qin Pingan handed him the Guan ultimatum and the hub, Yushirwu finally understood why Xiaoxing could describe everything in the world so quickly. He thought she was good at this and had a special talent. It turned out that Qin Pingan had already laid the foundation. Xiaoxing and Yu Qing only needed to select the components and put them together. For example, in a strange land that looks like the source of all laws, there are countless buildings of various types, dotted around, dense and orderly. Yushirwu and they can control something at will. They can shrink it as small as a mustard seed or expand it like a star, depending on their own wishes. Just talking about Taoist temples, there are 62 Taoist temples and 81 temples in this script. The key is that each has its own characteristics. For example, we borrowed the statue of the 24 heavens from Tifo Temple, the statue of Lingguan from Lingxiao Temple, the mural of Chaoyuan dynasty from Dechunyang Wanshou Palace, the Linggu Temple that closed the mountain gate on horseback, and the lifelike 500 wood sculptures from Jingxi Temple in Nanping Mountain. In addition, there are 2 originals of Taoist temples and temples that have removed all features, similar to the carved mother coins used by the government to cast copper coins. The dismantled objects are of various types, such as plaques, couplets, and statues of gods. Murals, caissons, oil lamps, pillars, mortises and tenons, masonry. They are all divided into categories, formulated into high and low levels, and arranged according to the heavenly stems, earthly branches, etc. It is not just a simple patchwork, superposition and combination, but an establishment similar to Confucianism in a broad sense. A mere dharma is not enough for oneself. From the inner sage comes the outer king. A building as a whole can be dismantled into hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of fragmented and small partial components, and the three of them can just use them. That's why the Shao shape is created so quickly. Nowadays, the few of them are certainly adding to the number of things in the world, but in terms of difficulty, they are subtracting. Such fantastic ideas, such originality. Yu Shiwu no longer felt admiration or awe, but an instinctive fear deep in his heart. In addition, there is a clear spring on the top of the mountain. The spiritual energy is as thick as spring water. It is detained here and looks like a quiet pool. Anyone who feels tired can come here to drink water directly, meditate, rest, recharge and replenish spiritual energy. According to Shao Xing, so much spiritual energy from heaven and earth is equivalent to the spiritual energy reserve of an Ascension Realm monk. When they reached the top of the mountain, the ground was paved with green bricks. Qin Pingan walked to the water pool and said for no reason, Ma Xuanhuan is a smart man, and he is also an awkward person. Regarding his natal flying sword, Ma Xuanhuan had already experienced it personally on the banks of the Dada River. But Zhou Mi, who was summoned by Ma Xuanhuan's visualization, didn't know anything about it. There are actually many people who like to be at odds with themselves, others and the world. For example, Lu Xianying never likes to say sorry to others. Another example is Song Jisin, who wanted to ease relations with his neighbors many times but was unwilling to take the initiative. Maybe Ma Xuanhuan's awkwardness is that he refuses to talk to anyone properly, and refuses to ask for help even if he lives or dead. Yu Shiwu couldn't guess why Qin Pingan said this. Qin Pingan did not continue to talk about this topic. Yu Shiwu asked, Qin Pingan, do you really need external forces like us? Qin Pingan said resolutely, of course it is necessary. Yu Shiwu asked, why? Qin Pingan said, let a person eat braised pork for 3 meals a day. It's not enough if he doesn't eat it. How does it taste? Does it feel good? Yu Shiwu smiled and said, of course it's uncomfortable. Qin Pingan said, similarly. No matter how exquisite the mountains, rivers and various buildings I have built, they can be a step ahead of you in everything, everyone and everything. As long as you look at them too much and for a long time, there will be a feeling of boredom or even nausea. This kind of intuition is not very reasonable. So I need a few of you. Yu Shiwu sighed and said, I understand. Years ago I have been pursuing the state of error-free. But one day I discovered that certain errors are so valuable. Qin Pingan said slowly, someone needs to make mistakes instead of this world. The more mistakes there are, the more real and credible this world will be. Yu Shiwu praised, suddenly enlightened. If he could really get away from that disaster, Yu Shiwu would really want to go to Luapa Mountain to find a place, even if it was to be a janitor. Qin Pingan smiled and said, being the gatekeeper of our Lualu Mountain is more difficult than having a seat in the Jisa Peak Patriarch Hall. Yu Shiwu felt helpless. Qin Pingan stretched out a palm and said with a smile, those gold and copper coins that are temporarily entrusted to you for safekeeping? Yu Shiwu couldn't stop laughing angrily. It's obvious that the property has been returned to the original owner, so why did it become something that was kept for someone else? If you cut off the road and steal money, just say so, why bother talking about borrowing money? Qin Pingan kept his posture unchanged, nodded and said, grab the money. Yu Shiwu took out a money bag from his sleeve and slapped someone's palm heavily, take them all, more than 230. Qin Pingan said thank you. Yu Shiwu shook his head. Qin Pingan asked, fellow Taoist Yu, do you want to see a truth that is not the whole picture? Think about it before answering. Yu Shiwu said without hesitation, look. Why don't you look? I saw a Taoist tree standing in the middle of the sky and earth, with countless almost smallest ones hanging on it. Yu Shiwu was stunned and speechless. He could only be dumbfounded. He was really shocked beyond measure by the scene in front of him. It feels both majestic and stunning but also terrifying and shuddering. This Qin Pingan, regardless of his ambition, he clearly wants to recreate the world. And it completely confuses the boundaries between truth and falsehood, fiction and reality. What you see when you take a quick look at flowers is ultimately scrawled, and you often know what is happening but not why. Many truths that reveal mysteries in the world, whether they are still scams or have become facts, will always make people feel nothing more than that. But when Qin Pingan only revealed the prologue of the whole truth, Yu Shiwu was already unstable. Qin Pingan, who was still dressed as a Taoist priest at this moment, laughed at himself. There are impure paths to follow. A mustard seed returned to Lu Xiaozhou's true body. Qin Pingan put his hand between his eyebrows. After a moment, he leaned on the back of the chair and slowly exhaled a breath. Qin Pingan took out a yellowing book from his sleeve, placed it gently on the table and opened a page. It recorded a technique that the higher the monk's vision, the more he valued it. The sky and the earth are connected and the mountain walls are connected. They are as soft as apricot blossoms and as thin as paper pages. I point my sword and quickly open the door, following the orders of Mr. Three Mountains and Nine Marquises. Looking down at these words, Qin Pingan was a little dazed after a moment, so he had to look away and close his eyes to rest. In this old book, the front preface and the following pages had been torn out. In addition, several non-connected pages had also been torn out in the middle, totaling 5. However, by chance Qin Pingan completed these 5 pages. This book is a ghost painting talisman that Li Huai gave to Qin Pingan at the Chinese Confucian temple. It was old man Yang from the drugstore who casually gave it to Li Huai. Li Huai then casually gave it to Qin Pingan, which was like giving help in a timely need. In her early years, the Empress Dowager Dali received 5 offered to the court from the Liu family on Fulu Street. One page of them recorded a technique for breaking into a room through a wall. She has poor eyesight and is completely ignorant of the goods. She only regards it as a wall-penetrating technique. Qin Pingan, who was finally brought into the palace with Xiao Mo, got these 5 pages. Then Li Huai sent books. Going around in circles, it is truly a coincidence. Li Huai said that his head hurt from watching it and he was not being polite. As for studying, Li Huai was just like what Mao Sai said in his comment, he is powerless, but he is better than diligence in studying. Qin Pingan obtained this extremely rare and ancient Taoist book. Although it did not last long, it helped him a lot in his subsequent road building. A lot of knowledge can be seen. Qin Pingan can even use the 4 words, I point a sword, to combine this complete formula with swordsmanship. Pei Min as Pei Min's unnamed disciple Bird's Eye View Peak Lu Fang, and Lotus Root Hua Fu Di Jing Xianxia's fencing skills are closely connected, and even Qin Pingan guessed that Bai Shang, who was formerly Lu Yu in a small town, must have a killer weapon related to this fencing skills. Maybe in the future, when they meet on a narrow road, Bai Shang can kill him with one sword. Opening Qin Pingan's caged bird's restriction on heaven and earth is really as soft as an apricot blossom, as thin as a paper page as the magic formula says. Bai Shang can easily pass through the wall and back with his sword, so Qin Pingan needs to take it easy and must be on guard. Bai Shang's hand. Qin Pingan also remembered a strange thing that he couldn't understand. He remembered that when he was an apprentice in a dragon kiln, he often went into the mountains with old man Yao to search for soil. Every time Qin Pingan climbed up, he could see a high mountain on the east boundary. But after Liju Cave fell from the sky to the ground, the mountaintop disappeared out of thin air. To be precise, the 2 mountains were lost together. The latter is called Shuangfeng Mountain, also called Poda Mountain, and Pingtum Mountain, about 50 miles away from this mountain, is also called Dongshan. Qin Pingan once asked Cui Dongshan about the whereabouts of these 2 mountains. Was it quietly moved away by someone with great supernatural powers, or was it someone who used the method of sealing the mountains to stay in place but be isolated from the world? Cui Dongshan didn't even no matter what happens, let the embroidered tiger take the blame and curse the old whenever he gets the chance just for fun. Qin Pingan had a splitting headache when he had so many thoughts in his mind. He had to quickly put his thoughts to rest, raised his arms and made a fist, and gently tapped his forehead to suppress the small world of his body. Qin Pingan stretched his arms a few times, closed his eyes, and gently knocked the back of his head on the back of the chair. Bai Zhe said that bearing the true name of the demon clan will be much easier when Qin Pingan reaches the immortal realm. It was really not a lie. Gukin stood in the corridor outside the door, hesitated for a moment, and then gently knocked on the door. When Gukin entered the room and closed the door, Qin Pingan still closed his eyes to rest and said, "You can ask if you want." Gukin sat across the table and asked, "Can you really erase the memory of a chi practitioner?" Qin Pingan still didn't open his eyes and said softly, "It's easy to deal with a nascent soul realm. For example, the old woman Puliu, and the demon monk Shaoxing hidden in the lotus root blessed land. It's not easy to deal with the Yupu realm. I need to spend a lot of money. Without energy and aura, the key is to be persistent, just like wrapping a spark with layers of thick paper. The stronger the Taoist heart of a Jade Pu realm monk, the bigger the flame." Gukin said in a deep voice, "Being able to deal with the nascent soul realm is enough to shock the world. If you can erase the key memories of a nascent soul realm at will and prescribe the right medicine, wouldn't you be able to deal with the inner demons and have a fundamental cure?" Gukin said you. Qin Pingan deliberately ignored the word we, remained silent for a moment, shook his head and said, "Don't forget, the word I used at the beginning was cut off." Reaching out and scratching a mark on the table with his nails, Qin Pingan asked, "What do you use to fill this seemingly small but actually huge gap?" Just like cutting off a piece of flesh from a person, no matter how big or small, after all, it is not as simple as an injury healing and scarring, or a matter of making flesh from white bones. Qin Pingan said slowly, "Ordinary qi practitioners, sect genealogy monks, and even many earthly immortals may not know the truth, but there is no reason for you not to know." Gukan nodded and said, "Everything we see, hear, eat, smell, feel sad, happy, and think is actually recorded in our souls one by one. It is difficult to realize it without knowing it." Qin Pingan said, "If you are a lady, you will know what you have witnessed." This sentence is generally used to describe geniuses. In fact, it can be regarded as a side note of memory, so don't interpret it. Speaking of talent, for example, Wang Sun from Xuandu Temple in Qizhou under Qingming World. Gukan and Qin Pingan have such a tacit understanding. Isn't this misinterpretation a misinterpretation? Are you familiar with Lu Qin, or am I more familiar? Why are you holding grudges against me? Go hold grudges against that loudmouth Lu Xianyang. Why should I hold a grudge against a big mouth? I only care about small-minded people like you." Qin Pingan continued, "Secondly, whether it is Pu Lu or Xiao Xing, the memory of Qin Pingan to them is not deep, and the involvement is not extensive. It is relatively simple to cut it. This is why I will send them to one of the reasons you have in hand is not just to help you make things better. Once they stay with me for a long time or stay in the Luoluo Mountain to practice Taoism, they will almost completely lose the possibility of reaching the Jade Pu realm. I only talk about tampering with memories and deleting them. It is actually not too difficult to subtract one thing and add something else, and finally achieve the point where the fake is the real thing. The difficulty lies in being consistent with reason, context and Tao. But with this method, we dare to hope to block all the disturbance of the inner demons of the monks in the nascent soul realm is nothing more than a fool's dream. We can only act in accordance with the times and occasionally do it to some people. Doing so is tantamount to taking the initiative to bear a share of the cause and effect. Who among those who practice Taoism does not pursue a path without branches or vines? Those who want to do this cannot. Weak-hearted. Those who can do it don't want to do it. Powerful but unintentional. Qin Pingan had one more thing that he didn't tell Gukan. Are there two identical snowflakes in the world? Zheng Juzhong said he had seen it. This means that Zheng Juzhong can let any Yuanying realm monk enter the Jade Plane at will without any inner demons. Qin Pingan even suspected that one of the purposes of Zheng Juzhong's retreat, this time was to wait for the demon that could be regarded as the pseudo-15th realm and wait for it to come to Baidi City to discuss the Tao. Gukan said, "I will try to establish the sect in April and arrive at Aquarius continent on the first day of May." Qin Pingan asked in confusion, "Why are you in such a hurry?" Gukan looked at him. Qin Pingan became more and more confused. Gukan pouted, "Thank you for being so smart." Qin Pingan laughed angrily and said, "Don't be too pretentious." Gukan said, "Lu Xianying plans to set the wedding on the 5th day of May." Qin Pingan was about to speak but stopped and fell into a long silence. With a hard face he stood up, walked to the window and looked outside. Gukan's answer was something Qin Pingan couldn't even imagine. Gukan also turned his head silently and looked towards the door. Tall boy, straw sandal boy, little slug. In the past they often walked together on the field ridges, holding foxtail grass in their mouths. Maybe it was because their hometown was too small, their age was too young, and their vision was too small, so they did not dare to think too big about the future. Lu Taoji needed to immediately go across the continent to the main hall to cleanse the wronged, hand over Xiao Pu's robe, ask an expert to help peel off the cocoon, and carefully inspect whether there were any hidden traces. Before leaving Chongyang Temple, he told Xiao Pu to carefully protect Master Cheng. He came to Aquarius Island this time to do three things: protect Master Cheng for a period of time, spend the Yuan dynasty in Huzhou to practice in the mountains, and persuade Qin Pingan to serve as the chief guest of Xishan Jianin lineage. Xiao Pu asked, "What should I do if the Yuan dynasty immortal is left alone for a few years to sharpen her skills?" There are experts in the main hall who have long figured out that the Yuan dynasty immortal is a natural talent in the Golden and Jade Jungle, and must bring her back to the mountains from Aquarius continent. Lu Taoji nodded and said, "Although there are 9 out of 10 catastrophes on the mountain, there is no way to escape them. However, as a Taoist cultivator, by refining his spirit internally and accumulating external skills, he can indeed weaken the catastrophe to a certain extent. She still needs more experience in the world of mortals." Xiao Pu said, Having said that, senior brother Lu cannot delay her best opportunity to practice Taoism. Lu Taoji said, I'm going to see her and teach her a swordsmanship first. Junior sister Xiao doesn't need to be tutored from the side. We go down the mountain to teach people as we go, while they go up the mountain to practice Taoism, but they have to do it themselves. Xiao Pu shook his head. I have gone through this calamity myself. Now I don't have the courage to do so. I just hide here. The middle-aged Taoist priest is already burly and powerful, so he feels extremely oppressive, especially for a woman of medium stature. Looking at him, he looks like a mountain. So Baoshu was extremely nervous. When the other party gave her the Taoist book, regardless of whether she understood it or not, the middle-aged Taoist priest just explained it word for word, and her mind went blank. Zhongshan, who was as tall and thin as a bamboo pole, went to a back alley in Changning County and ran all the way back to Chongyang Temple. When he met the old Taoist priest, the young man had a look of regret on his face and said, Bai Yun and his grandfather have moved. I asked the neighbors and they didn't know. When I went to find the person who rented the house to them, he also said that he had disappeared, only that his grandfather and grandson were in the house and left some scraps of money. The old Taoist priest stroked his beard and smiled and said, If you don't get it by fate, you can't get it if you ask for it. It's the same for you and your friend Bai Yun. Don't be sad. You'll know tomorrow if we can meet again. Zhongshan hummed. Song Juchuan, a short Taoist boy, suddenly asked, Master Jing, have you ever heard of the term crane's breath? The old man sighed and said, How do you know this kind of Taoist terminology? Song Juchuan was stunned. Is it true? Cheng Fengxian said with a smile. Of course, this sermon on the mountain is not popular, it is relatively unfamiliar. A teacher may know the saying crane breath, but ordinary Taoists may not have heard of it. Song Juchuan cursed endlessly, that guy is so evil. The old Taoist priest thought about it and decided to visit the ghost house in Zhugan Hudong in Yongjia County. He dipped it in the talisman water and used the eye purifying technique. As expected, he saw 2 branches of mugwort hanging at the door, but they were not close to the door. Not having the shame to keep it secret, the old Taoist priest gently knocked on the door, and soon a woman opened the door. She looked around and asked a strange question, Taoist Master Wu? The old Taoist priest was puzzled and said, Is she Miss Xue? The poor Taoist surname is Cheng, and her Taoist name is Huelu. She practices in Chongyang Monastery. I came here because of the reminder from Taoist Master Wu, and I took the liberty to come here to buy something from Miss Xue. Wormwood hanging at the door. Xue Rui was very puzzled. She looked and looked but couldn't see anything. Where is the mugwort? There was indeed a smooth-tongued young Taoist priest who used to be attentive to her and even said something about giving her a pair of mugworts. It's okay to hang calamus and mugwort in ordinary doors to ward off evil spirits and avoid ghosts. She Xue Rui as a ghost hangs mugwort in this ghost house? Thanks to that liar Taoist priest for figuring it out. But Xue Rui didn't care about this and was too lazy to talk to the old Taoist priest. She turned around and left. The door closed on its own. She just said, You can just take it for yourself. Don't talk to me about money. It's just a gift, not a sale. With this move, she immediately calmed the old Taoist priest, thinking that she was indeed a female ghost who could let Tong Xinjun set foot in this place. She was not in a high realm but had a very good temperament. Xue Rui didn't care about mugwort or Chongyang Temple. She was listless and without touching the ground, she floated all the way back to the swing and swayed gently, with a pair of embroidered shoes, high and low. It seemed that as long as she didn't turn her head, there would be a Taoist priest holding a bowl squatting behind her. When she turned her head, there was no one there. Looking at the flowers and plants, she rubbed her eyes and looked intently. She was sure that there was indeed a pot of flowers that the Taoist priest praised as the master of welcoming the spring. Her eyes were bright and her smile was like a flower, which seemed to fill the vacancy of the pot of flowers. Pei Qian traveled across continents to Yunyan country through a 3-mountain talisman, and sat on a large branch on a mountain outside the capital, drinking silently. From a distance, the lights of Yulin Ferry could be seen stretching like daylight. Pei Qian was not in a hurry to go to Tongyin Ferry over there, thinking about something. Behind the back, someone hooked his legs on a branch, hanging upside down with his head on the ground, making faces and saying scary words. Little girl, guess who I am, are you afraid? Without looking, Pei Qian punched the opponent backwards, hitting the opponent's forehead. The big white goose pretending to be hanged swayed back and forth, crying out in pain. The young man in white with the mole between his eyebrows rubbed his forehead, turned around and sat next to Pei Qian. Cui Dongshan smiled and asked, What are you thinking about? Pei Qian shook his head. Cui Dongshan looked into the distance and murmured to himself, A continent of mountains and rivers has been shattered. Those who should have supported the coffin and carried the coffin have become new ghosts. There is no smoke for thousands of miles, the dead are like a mess, the corpses are exposed in the city and fields, and the heads belong to the Tao. The flying swallow returns in spring and nests in the forest. I never thought that Xianxia would come back to life so quickly. I just asked the immortal masters on the mountain and the powerful men from all over the world to stop being so oblivious. Otherwise, so many people died and their death was really in vain. Worry. Pei Qian took out a bottle of wine from something nearby and handed it to Cui Dongshan. Cui Dongshan waved his hand. Forget about drinking. They'll quit drinking today. Cui Dongshan immediately rubbed his hands and said, there are a few things that I want to report to senior sister Pei. First of all, I have met Yu Lu and you are welcome. Yu Lu is an open-minded person. I simply misunderstood that he was in the old Lu family. Over at the dynasty territory, he had seen the white clothes of his ancestor. The latter also gave him a box of elixirs which were very precious. They were the fourth party known as the 100 Days to Immortality, written by Guxianjun, and this Lord Guxian is the one written on the talisman just now by senior sister Pei. Bai Shang's only disciple was Su Xian, the beggar who pestered He Xiaoyang. He soon became one of Yu Lu's helpers in establishing the country. Yu Lu, a thief, asked me if I could do it. I am a big man. When faced with such a problem, how can you say no? In addition, Wu Yi, the founder of Huangting Kingdom's Xiang Mansion with the Taoist name Dongling, and the eldest daughter of the old Jiaoqing Longzhou, has already started to start over on the bank of the Ling River and start the mountain again. She has established the sect as the founder. If nothing else, the name of the sect should be Chunyang Mansion. She probably hopes that she can change one word in the future and become Chunyang's sect. The idea is good, and Wu Yi also has something that is not much. Not long ago, my junior brother and Chao Qinglang brought those Tonggishao people who were willing to leave the Lotus Root blessed land and return to their hometown through a well connected to the Mirage city of the Daquan dynasty. Chao Qinglang found the emperor. That is, the sister Yao you are familiar with. The conversation was very good and the atmosphere was harmonious. Half of the Qi refiners and their descendants of the immortal family were willing to have a relationship with the Daquan Yao family. They lined up all night to talk to Yao Jin. After that, various secret treaties were signed, and now that we have a backer we can rush back to restore our respective kingdoms, return the God Lord to his throne, seize territory and so on. As a reward, the Daquan dynasty will give our Qingping sword sect a ship named Thunder for free. Cars cross-continental ferry. After hearing this, Pei Qian, who was just drinking silently, finally said, why does it belong to your Qingping sword sect? It must be discussed through the Luolu Mountain Patriarch Hall before it can be counted. Cui Dongshan sighed. Those words were like the swish of a flying sword that poked countless holes in my little senior brother's heart. Pei Qian raised the wine bottle in his hand and said, stop talking about it and keep talking about business. Cui Dongshan lamented, sad first, then cold, it will be double the damage. Pei Qian rolled his eyes. Cui Dongshan held the back of his head with both hands, swayed his legs and said leisurely, over there in our blessed land, we have the very qualified female nun Sun Wanyan Luo Fume, the direct disciple of Pei Xiang from the Fox Kingdom, and the swordsman who has just reached the Golden Realm. Chao and I, Xuanhuan, who is determined to learn some boxing skills from my husband in Luapa Mountain, Wu Jiang, an unreliable but very reliable young hero, and He Qizhou, a female martial artist from Jiangzhou and Songlai Kingdom, they all, after completing the task of protecting the road, I feel that this opportunity is rare, so I am willing to go out and walk more and have a long experience in Tonggishao. I guess they are all on their way to Yunyan country together. You don't know where is Mr. Demugwin with its miraculous preaching posture. I don't know how many men admire it and women admire it. Sir, he never makes mistakes. When it comes to the love between men and women, he is very clean and self-sufficient. He can't find any flaws, but I don't know how many mistakes he made. A woman's mind. The one who least misleads himself most misleads others. There's nothing you can do about it. Pei Qian grinned and the words made sense. The woman she once called Sister Yao, the current Empress Yao Jinji, isn't she one of them? Cui Dongshan smiled and said, as for our chief Zhou who works hard and never complains, he is feeling panic now. Mr. Xiaoma, who may not be able to win the battle for the road for the first time, is holding back his breath and trying his best to prove himself. He brought 4 sword cultivators who emerged from the Lotus Root blessed land to Tongya continent earlier than Chao Qinglang and I. Chief Zhou also took away a woman from the blessed land whose pseudonym was Su Jiaoqia and whose real name was Xiao Xing. The dead man took a trip to Tianmu Academy. She and Yuan, the headmaster of Tianmu Academy, worked together flawlessly and frightened many onlookers hiding behind the scenes. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "That's all for the time being. After the report is completed, I sincerely ask Senior Sister Pei to give instructions." Pei Qian just said, "I really want to travel with Master in Howren, but I can't say it." Cui Dongshan laughed and said, "So this is what I'm worried about." Pei Qian squinted and said, "Is it funny?" Cui Dongshan immediately put his fingers together and touched his mouth, shaking his head vigorously like a rattle. Pei Qian said, "Master asked me to send you a message. He already has a clue about the few barbaric remnants who disrupted the situation. He has a portrait in his heart, which is the barbarian swordsman with the pseudonym Daku. Master, please relax. Well, he has his own means, and if he has the opportunity to follow the clues, he might be able to find the Golden Core Realm Talisman Cultivator." Cui Dongshan followed the example of the white-haired boy and started to raise his arms and shout, "Sir, you are wise, you are martial, you are more invincible than the real invincible." Pei Qian said, "Ma Xuanhuan is dead. The master was seriously injured. The long sword Yao was broken into 2 pieces, and the robe that carried the demon clan's true name was also torn. As a result, the master left for a jade journey. The Chongyang temple in the capital of Shen Kingdom was injured again for some reason. Master told me not to worry, but I really want not to worry, but I can't help but worry." Cui Dongshan nodded. Pei Qian said, "Master, in this retreat, in addition to ascending to the immortal realm, he also returned to the final level of the true realm." Cui Dongshan hesitated for a moment and asked curiously, "This is a good thing. Why do you still look frowning?" Pei Qian remained silent and did not drink. Cui Dongshan said, "In the outer world, I am helping the Li Sheng and cooperating with those experts who are as tall as they can be to prevent the 2 worlds from colliding. I am responsible for presiding over the formation, and I am very good at weakening the physique of martial artists, so I will follow Qi. It is actually a matter of course to be able to prosper and return to one's true nature." Pei Qian said dully, "Master did not pass away as the strongest." Cui Dongshan grinned and said, "This kind of thing cannot be forced. If it is, it is, and if it is not, it is not. What's more, now the 2 worlds of Howren and Wilderness are connected, and it happened to be a rare rain period in 10,000 years. What? Weird people and things will pop up. It's a pity that you didn't get the title of the strongest, sir, of course, but it won't make you so depressed, Senior Sister, right?" Pei Qian stared into the distance, wondering whether he saw yesterday and the day before yesterday, or whether he wanted to see tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Cui Dongshan shook his head and shoulders, shook his sleeves and said, "Sister, don't worry, the who stole your master will be found by me sooner or later. When the time comes." Cui Dongshan woke up suddenly as if someone had strangled his neck and couldn't say a word. Slowly turning his head, Cui Dongshan asked tentatively, "Senior Sister, could it be that?" Pei Qian nodded and said, "It's my fault." Cui Dongshan even scratched his head and didn't know how to speak. If it were someone else who said such words to Cui Dongshan in person, Cui Dongshan would jump up and act like a big-mouthed person. "Who are you? What a scallion. You dare to say such big words? A martial artist at the level of the small end of realm. Are you sure that you have robbed my husband of his martial arts fortune? I don't know how high the world is, how many times have I been the strongest, how many martial arts gifts have I obtained?" The answer turned out to be Pei Qian. So Cui Dongshan was a little confused. Pei Qian said softly, "I originally thought it would be a small surprise for Master, but now it's fine. I really am a loser, right?" Even if Cui Dongshan had hundreds of reasons in his heart, he didn't think he could convince Pei Qian that he didn't have to do this. It's totally useless. So Cui Dongshan had no choice but to use a useless method. He put his palm to his mouth and called his husband by his first name, whispering, "Qin Pingan, Qin Pingan." Pei Qian was furious, turned around and glared, "Big white goose, are you seeking death?" In an instant, Qin Pingan seemed to know about the matter through Cui Dongshan's complaint, and without hesitation he immediately used some kind of magical power to temporarily release the white-clothed god, and spoke to his disciples from afar with his heartfelt voice, his tone difficult to conceal. His face was full of smiles. "It would be shameful if I didn't tell you earlier. I'll save the chestnuts for now. Without further ado, I'd like to teach Master a lesson for a certain proud student who has committed a treasonous act." Cui Dongshan felt extremely aggrieved and wailed, "Sir, you are happy and Senior Sister is relieved. Am I the only one who is not a human being inside and out? Ah!" The series that followed were actually prepared by Cui Dongshan in advance and deliberately complained to his husband. But Big White Goose didn't expect that the senior sister didn't take action. Cui Dongshan, who was a little embarrassed for the first time, scratched his face. It was overheated and he made a mistake. Pei Qian raised his head and took a sip of wine, raised the back of his hand to wipe the corners of his mouth. His whole demeanor changed completely, his expression was no longer gloomy, and he said with flying eyebrows, "Senior brother, thank you." Cui Dongshan took advantage of her good mood and said with a smile, "In addition to you Xuanfu and Lu Suiyu, Lu Yuzhou is also in the capital." Pei Qian twitched the corner of his mouth. "On my master's side I can pretend not to hear certain hidden meanings. As for you, Big White Goose, if I don't hide it's not because Lu Yuzhou likes me. What a big deal. What he likes has nothing to do with me, Pei Qian. Now that a girl is older she must get married? Even if she becomes an old girl, so what? In this world there is already a master and she has a career to go." Cui Dongshan clicked his tongue and said, if Lu Yuzhou knew what senior sister was thinking, he didn't know whether he should be grateful that he didn't have to be put in a sack, or whether he would be so sad that his liver and intestines would clench into knots. Pei Qian showed her signature smile. Cui Dongshan immediately changed his mind, jumped up, patted his belly, laughed and said, "The jejunum is roaring like thunder, I invite you to eat snails. Hot pot is also available. Let's go, let's have a midnight snack." Pei Qian stood up and said, "Let's go to Tongyin Ferry." Cui Dongshan pecked the rice. "Senior sister, you don't know Naomi de Sword Immortal is so cool, and the limelight is unprecedented. Let's ride the wind together to Yilindu." Yunyan country is located in the middle of Tongya continent. It is a small country with a basin situation and a land in the palm of your hand. Although he was not a vassal of any dynasty, the only things he could get away with were the name of the vinegar city, barley wine and ink making. But now it is the most prestigious country in the entire Tongya continent. The Yunyan Qin family temporarily built a fish-scale ferry to facilitate the travel of immortal masters on the mountain. When the Fengyuan ferry docked here, Miu, who did not leave home, just stood by the boat railing by chance. There were whispers one after another on the other side of the ferry, obsessed and blurred eyes, excited faces, and even there was the woman's scream. They worked tirelessly to wait and see, just to see Shangmi Sword Ferry from a distance. This makes Miu very annoyed. Just those women from wealthy families in various countries. You are all cultivators. You shouldn't be so motivated by sex, right? Nowadays there are not a few women who are fighting for Miu, and their number is increasing, and they can almost form a gang in the capital of Yunyan Kingdom. As the chief worshipper of Qingping Sword sect, Miu Mi de Sword Immortal did not have a place in the temporarily established ancestral hall. The position was given to a young man named Chao Qinglang from Jingxing Peak. They thought about it and found only one reason. Probably this was the unique state of mind of a Sandan Sword Immortal. Thinking of this, they fell in love with the noble Mi Lang even more. They really couldn't imagine what kind of wind Mi Jianxian was on the top of the great sword Qi Wall, who lived alone all year round, sleeping drunkenly in the clouds and clouds. The Qingping Sword sect, which is a sect under the Luo mountain and a dragon crossing the river, has Mi Sword Immortal in command. If we don't activate the mirror flowers and water moon, wouldn't it be a waste of natural resources? It's hard for us, Mi Lang. No wonder Mi Jianxian, the beautiful tree facing the wind, could not hide his desolate look every time he saw her before. Mi Ye's true mentality couldn't be simpler. I'm just a loser. I can't do it, I don't deserve it. Look, Mi Jianxian is in a very good mood today. He is willing to drink with others and enjoy himself. My Mi Lang walks with one hand behind his back and twirling a wine bottle with on the other hand. He is really cool. Who can drink with Mi Jianxian at the same table? It doesn't matter what his status is as long as he's not a woman. Previously, Lu Kaishan of Aizhou participated in the Qingping Sword sect ceremony and generously sent a Tongyin ferry directly. Although Tongyin is not a cross-continental ferry, its cargo capacity is even better than the ink-turning dragon boat in Shangzong Luapa Mountain. Nowadays, this Tongyin ferry has replaced Fengyuan ferry and docked at Yilindu, and it has almost become a private residence of the Sword Immortal that belongs exclusively to Miu. Tonight, on the second-floor deck of the ferry, Miu set up a table with 2 bottles of wine. Feng Shuetao, who was drinking at the same table, cooked several plates of cold dishes to go with the wine. Feng Shuetao, who was born as a wild cultivator, is good at something, can also be particular about things and can make do with things even better. He is good at all kinds of crafts. Feng Shuetao joked. It can be seen that Mi Jianxian is very popular here. Miu smiled bitterly and laughed at himself. If Taoist fellow Qingmi reveals his identity, he will only be more popular than a loser like me. Feng Shuetao said helplessly, Forget it, now my reputation is ruined in the streets of Tangisao. If I had known this, I would not have agreed to Daoist Jiang to be Shi Laozi's Jade Guizong enshrinement. This Aizhou Ascension Realm wild cultivator, whose Taoist name is Qingmi, is dressed in a python suit, a white jade belt, and an iron mace fastened to his waist. I followed Jiang Shangzhen on a trip to the famous Luolu mountain. Only a few steps away from Feng Shuetao, there was a young man with a yellow hat and blue shoes, and a girl with a mink hat with rosy cheeks. Jiang Shangzhen revealed the realm of both of them. After that, Feng Shuetao, who was in the Ascension realm himself, was frightened. Returning to Tangisao, he followed Jiang Shangzhen to the Yugui sect's ancestral hall. The process was extremely simple and it became a registered offering. However, Feng Shuetao found that everyone looked at him strangely. Feng Shuetao still arrived at the blessed land of Cloud Cave and went out for a walk alone, only to find out the reason. Now everyone on Izhou Mountain was talking about him. The outside world said that it was because of Jiang Thief's kind invitation that Feng Shuetao was willing to lower his status and serve as a worshipper of the Jade Gui sect. After all, his cultivation level was one level higher than that of the sect leader Wei Ying. Regarding this matter, there were rumors that Jiang Shang was so shameless that he knelt down with Feng Shuetao and kowtowed until his head was covered with blood and almost knocked off his head. One of the conditions Feng Shuetao put forward at that time was that he was a wild cultivator and a man. In the blessed land of Yunku, a woman must serve him every day to warm Feng Zuido's bed. It's quite reasonable. Since he can hang out with Jiang Shangzhen, a promiscuous and lewd thief who has a mother-in-law in every village, it's strange that Feng Shuetao can't speak so well. In his hometown of Aizu, Feng Shuetao had never been so miserable even after being a wild cultivator in Xianxia for so long. Even if he didn't take his reputation seriously, he still couldn't be completely shameless. Of course, Miyu heard these gossips and was very happy. However, the person involved was sitting across from him drinking, so he still had to be polite. He borrowed a lesson from the young people at the Summer Palace. Look at the two words freedom on the paper. How you write this word will tell you whether you are free or not. Feng Shuetao nodded and picked up the wine bowl. This is a good saying and it is worth leaving. Miyu raised the bowl and clinked it with it, then they both finished their drinks and said, my Taoist friend Yu Lao Qing has made more trips to that matter. Regarding the excavation of Dadu, from the early alliance to the establishment of the ancestral hall on the day when the second dragon raised its head in February, the early progress can be said to be smooth and a good start. Unexpectedly, a stick appears and smashes the talismans, causing people to lose heart. Whether you are asking for money or just to make ends meet, you cannot risk your life. For this reason, Miyu, two old sword cultivators from his hometown, Xing Yun and Lu Shui, as well as Huang Ting from Taiping Mountain, the immortal named Long Men from Taishu Mountain in Middle-earth, and even Qing Tong from Jinyao Tower secretly moved out. In the end, Huang Ting was the only one who bumped into that guy by chance. Even so, Huang Ting still couldn't kill him on the spot. The other party's good luck is what is most hateful and terrifying. Two figures floated down beside the table, and Miyu quickly stood up to greet them. Pei Qian cupped his fists and smiled, Chief Mi, Senior Qingmi. Feng Shuetao nodded with a smile and returned the greeting. I have met Grandmaster Pei and Sect Master Cui. Pei Qian took out a cotton parcel from something nearby, handed it to Miyu and explained, Xiamili asked me to give it to you. It contains dried fish, melon seeds and preserved fruits. Miyu was in a good mood, and the gloom in his heart was swept away. If sect leader Cui hadn't been present, Sword Immortal Mi would have really wanted to resign as the chief minister of Qingping Sword Sect tonight, kill first and then report, and rush to Luapa Mountain tomorrow. Are you scolding me for being a loser? Just scold me and promise not to talk back. When will I, Miyu, be able to shoulder heavy responsibilities anyway? Cui Dongshan smiled and stretched out a palm to pat Mi Dejiangxian's shoulder. Mi Dejiangxian is a man of great talent but little use. The burden on his shoulders is still light. Miyu didn't even know how to reply. Cui Dongshan said with a playful smile, Fortunately, Sword Immortal Mi is one of our own and is reluctant to scold me. Otherwise, if I were in my shoes and scolded him, I would definitely say something like, the young man is so handsome, but it's a pity that he is not mute. If I don't knock the out of you with my sword, it means you haven't had enough. Miyu was Miyu after all. Holding the package, he was still in a good mood. Except for Mr. Yin Guan, if anyone can disgust me with words, it means I haven't cultivated my mind enough. Cui Dongshan shook his palm towards Miyu and said with a smile, Chief Mi, I'll give you a holiday. I'll be over for a month. You are allowed to go back to Shangzong and find Xiaomi Li Wan. Miyu was overjoyed. Seriously? Cui Dongshan asked, If you don't mean it, how about you pretend it's false? Miyu smiled and said, if you take it seriously, you must take it seriously. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, I still want jianghu. Does it rhyme? Pei Qian reminded, it's almost done. Cui Dongshan put his fingers together and muttered something. After a while, 2 chairs came swaying and stopped beside the table. Pei Qian put his hand on his forehead, but he really couldn't see. I don't know who among the younger generation of Lizhu Dongtian first put forward the idea, and they are gradually recognized by the world as the opening generation. As the founding disciple of the young Yin Guan, an extremely young Zijing grandmaster who was able to become famous in Jinjiazu early, Pei Qian was certainly among them and at the forefront. As soon as Pei Qian sat down, he stood up again and said, I want to go to the lotus root blessed land. Cui Dongshan blinked. About to break through? Pei Qian nodded. Break the situation. In the lonely mountain, the boy in green and the girl in black were not sleepy. They were sitting on the stone table on the other side of the bamboo building eating melon seeds. The 2 sides bumped melon seeds together like wine bowls and then nibbled melon seeds. In the house where the door was never locked, the old cook was lying on a wicker chair and had a dream. He saw a butterfly standing on a phoenix hairpin, or it might be stuck on it. At the foot of the mountain, Zheng Dafeng spent the long night alone, unable to sleep, scratching his head and head, thinking that he couldn't do it. He was so skilled at playing hard to get. Could it be that the tricks written in the book were all lies? The Taoist priest Xianhui next door was reading at night in his study. It was a very serious Taoist book, and it was also a book that very few Xianhui could understand. The Taoist priest occasionally dipped his fingers in saliva and gently turned the pages. The Taoist priest and the words in the book felt like old friends at first sight. On a liuxia boat, Qin Pingan was lying on the bed, sleeping deeply and snoring like thunder. Even his sleeping posture was so regular, with his hands folded on his abdomen, his lips pursed subconsciously, and his brows frowned slightly. Ningyao was sitting on the edge of the bed. She blushed slightly, twitching her eyelashes. She murmured something, stretched out her fingers, and stretched her brows for him gently. Sword of Coming Chapter 1227. Chapter 1227 Weird Mountain God and Alien. It was rare for Qin Pingan to be so free both physically and mentally. He slept until he woke up naturally and had a solid sleep. Darkness and dawn only last one night, and I don't know how many flowers bloom and fall in the world. When he woke up, he noticed that on the corridor outside the house, someone's face was pressed against the door, and Gukin was standing against the wall. This made Qin Pingan burst into laughter. You two are protecting the formation and I am not in retreat. Qin Pingan suddenly opened the door and Lu Xianyang fell into the house. Gukin looked strange. Qin Pingan smiled and said, how can there be so many assassinations, and I am a vegetarian at the level of my final state? Gukan's expression was even weirder. Lu Xianyang stood up and patted his sleeves. Be careful, Qin Pingan, you are still not experienced enough in the world. Let's go. Gukan finally couldn't help but say something fair. After you fell asleep, Ningyao came to Liuxia boat and suddenly appeared. We didn't notice the slightest movement, but she took the initiative to say hello to us. Only then did we know she had arrived, but we didn't know when she left. Lu Xianyang walked quickly out of the house, but Qin Pingan reached out and held his shoulder. He came to the corridor like a cloud and mist. Gukan also wanted to trick Lu Xianyang and ran away. Qin Pingan also grabbed his shoulder. Why are you running away one by one? Since you are righteous and confident, you have no guilty conscience and you are not afraid of being misunderstood by me? Both of them were hugged by Qin Pingan's neck, and they walked together in the corridor. They smiled and said, you are such a good brother and I am deeply moved. Gukan said, I just arrived not long ago. Lu Jianxian probably listened to Changzhen all night. Lu Xianyang cursed, what the hell, I'm just here with my front foot and you're here with your back foot. If I don't come, how dare you come? I'm here, are you willing to come? Gukan smiled and said, it makes sense, everything you said is right. Walk to the corridor and come to the bow of the ship. Gu Lingyan stood timidly on the deck, with the wind blowing and his clothes swaying to one side. His figure was graceful and his curves were exposed. Gukan frowned and asked, if you don't steer the Liuxia boat, why do you come here to drink from the northwest wind? Gu Lingzhan was so wrong that he hurriedly told them from the bottom of his heart. Ningyao came to me last night. She asked some secrets about the monks in the wilderness. Finally, she asked me to send 2 sentences to Qinyingguan. The first sentence is according to the established for the route, go to Fuyao Island. In the second sentence, Ningyao only has 4 words, has killed the ghost. Because Chen Pingan was mentally weak before and did not review the attack on Chongyang Temple with the two of them, they were all a little confused when they heard the 4 words passed by Gu Lingxian. Chen Pingan had no choice but to give them a rough explanation of the reason. Previously in Chongyang Temple, there was a candidate ghost of the 14th realm that had reached the Ascension realm. Because it had been blocked outside the threshold of the Hadao for too long, it wanted to take a path to save money. External skills, relying on the shortcut of perfecting Yinda and breaking through the realm, using the body and robes of a cherry green-robed ghost in Chongyang Temple, going against the path, as a crossing across the dark and bright, setting a great ambition to declare to the underworld, to avenge all the wild ghosts who died on the Great Wall of Sword Chi in Howren World, it would kill Chen Pingan. As a result, I didn't escape, but when I carried it, it fell into the air and leaked its traces. The Zhou city god of Middle-earth rushed there immediately in the underworld. I don't know how Ning Yao went to the underworld and how he killed ghosts. Lu Xianying stretched out his hand and patted Chen Pingan's belly. That's strange. Remember, your kid is fine just by beating his stomach. He rarely eats bad things. Why is it that as soon as he leaves his hometown he becomes acclimatized? He can't eat brown rice but can only eat fine grains. Already? Gu Lingyan was once again impressed by Sect Master Lu. How dare he eat soft rice in front of Chen Pingan? Gukan asked in a deep voice. In the underworld, kill a 14th realm candidate ghost? How did Ning Yao do it? Lu Xianying chuckled and said, this is a very disrespectful question. Besides being a pure swordsman cultivator and entering the 14th realm, can you find a second reason? Gukan just looked straight at Chen Pingan. Guesses are guesses, but Chen Pingan has to give the answer to the truth. Chen Pingan nodded. Gukan sighed. No matter who it was, competing with Ning Yao for talent and cultivation, it seemed that there was no genius in the world. After Gu Lingyan learned the truth, he was terrified. It's not a lie, it's just because her face can change in thousands of ways. At this moment, her face is Ning Yao in her heart. She tried her best to stabilize her heart, stretched out her hand and wiped her face vigorously, and then her appearance returned to Ziwu Meng's appearance. When Gu Lingyan visited Howren this time, he was not so afraid of the hidden official Chen Pingan because Gukan was there, not to mention that she had never participated in the attack on the Great Wall of Sword Chi and had not even set foot in the world of Howren. Chen Pingan couldn't just do it because she was a wild man. Monster Clan just kill her with one sword. But Ning Yao, a 14th level sword cultivator and the #1 person in the colorful world, killing a UP level monk with a barbaric base, isn't it just a joke? Lu Xianying touched Chen Pingan's head and let out a series of tuts. There's no such thing as an overnight grudge. My sister-in-law has already avenged you. Gukan didn't want an outsider to know more about the inside story, so he asked her to return to the center of the ferry and continue steering. Gu Lingxian was eager to do this so as not to be frightened and disturb his Taoist mind. Chen Pingan smiled and said, the second time I returned to the Guasian level, I didn't get the expected gift of martial arts. Lu Xianying asked doubtfully, I have lost something that should have been within my reach. I feel extremely disappointed. Do I have to force a smile on my brother's side? There is no need. Just cry and let the brothers be happy. Gukan asked, this shouldn't be the case. In this level of Qi you are the most confident and the strongest. Only in this level, Chao Ci has no advantage. Chao Ci's martial arts qualifications are of course better than Chen Pingan's, but he is very energetic and pays attention to a lot. Because Chao Ci's qualifications are so good, it is easy to underestimate them and miss them. As it turns out, this is indeed the case. Chen Pingan smiled from ear to ear and said slowly, so when I came out of seclusion and came out, I was also very strange. I mistakenly thought it was the fate of the world. Strange people and strange things happened frequently. Some people got some great opportunities such as being raped by an expert. I took a trip along the river of time and the like and saw thousands of years of time and thousands of mountains, and then I was able to work hard at this level and become better than me, so I didn't think much about it. I started from last night. Chui Dongshan knows the answer to the mystery, and it turns out to be Pei Qian. Lu Xianying slapped Chen Pingan on the head. You're showing off. Chen Pingan turned his head to avoid it and laughed. Not long after he reached the top just because of Pei Qian Kai, and because she was his first disciple, Chen Pingan was once again in the dark. Inferring the reasons based on the results, it is not difficult to understand how powerful Pei Qian is, how rich his background is, and how spectacular his appearance is. During the years when Chen Pingan was a hermit official, Pei Qian first went to Beiju Luzhou with Li Huai, and then traveled alone to Aizu Zhong to Shenzhou Jinjiazu. Pei Qian has even been to more Howren Jiuzhou than Chen Pingan. She has visited almost all of them. Moreover, Pei Qian's memory is far better than that of Qin Pingan, who has a good memory. Qin Pingan himself had noticed it a long time ago, and later Lu Qin specially reminded this matter in the Xuanhuan mountain boundary. This is also an important reason why Qin Pingan has been hesitant to take Pei Qian with him to travel to Hauran. When she goes out alone, her realm is high enough and she can walk more casually. When she is with Qin Pingan, she will be very attentive and serious. Don't forget, she can also see into people's hearts. As long as Pei Qian wants to see it, unless he is a monk on the top of the mountain, he will be able to see the scene of his heart connecting with heaven and earth. Therefore, Xuanji Yuxian, where Wufuki is located, is tailor-made for Pei Qian. She has a broad vision and a deep memory. As a master, Qin Pingan certainly hopes that she will see more about the great mountains and rivers in people's hearts and all things, lay a solid foundation for Qi Sheng, strive to break through in the future, be higher than herself and be better than others. But she was also worried that Pei Qian would be so focused and single-minded that if she watched too much and too long, she would be exhausted mentally and physically, leaving unknown consequences on her way to the top of martial arts. So Qin Pingan changed her mind again. The words, "the most powerful," are actually not that valuable, so what do they count? Is this a typical old father's mentality? No wonder the old cook Zheng Dafeng and Wei Bo chatted in private, saying that their mountain master Pei Qianyuan Shiziamili was very doting on them and they couldn't care less about them. Like a beloved daughter, I pity a certain boy in green, like a rebellious son who needs yawning and scolding. Qin Pingan said, Pu Lu and the others will follow you, and you will decide what position and status they will have in the sect in the future. Guqin nodded and said, I know it well. Qin Pingan smiled and said, Huang Lai has been a national teacher in Yushuan Kingdom for many years, and it is inevitable that he will be infected with certain officialdom habits. You have to be more generous and patient. In addition to throwing him 1 or 2 rare Taoist books, help him point the way. We still need to help him peel off the worldly atmosphere and return to the raw jade. Don't think that just because the 3 of us are at a very high level now, each with his own vision and worldview, and all the people and things we talk about are on the top of the mountain, don't think that the word, earth immortal, is not the same. It's valuable, the Yupu realm is nothing, the immortal is nothing more than that, and the ascension is just okay. To put it bluntly, it seems that the most unhelpful moment on the ship is now. If he had gone to the Liju cave that had just shattered and crashed to the ground, the 3 of us would have stood together. Even the platoon may not be able to withstand even half of Grandmaster Shin's punch. Guqin said, remember it. Lu Xianying stood beside him and said, nagging mother-in-law, are you bothered? Is it the village schoolmaster who teaches the Meng boy who wears open-crotch pants? Or the father scolds his son when he returns home? As a result, Qin Pingan's shoulder was hit by an elbow, and the instep was stepped on by Guqin, who then twisted hard with his toes. Lu Xianying snorted and put on a posture that was full of anger. Come back if you have the ability. If Lu Jianxian makes a sound, he will be your grandfather. Qin Pingan put his hands on his sleeves and turned around and said, you two continue to recognize each other, I will go back to the house and have a comfortable sleep. Call me again when you reach the border of Chuzhou. Lu Xianying smiled and said, good guy, you really think of yourself as a master, you dare to use Lu Jianxian and sect leader Gu like this. Guqin said from the bottom of her heart, you intend to hold the wedding banquet on his birthday, the 5th day of May, and I told him. In my hometown and small town, the 5th day of May is regarded as the 5 poison day. Children born on this day are born to be broom stars and gods of plague. So Lu Xianying wanted to hold the wedding on this day, and felt that this was the best day. Lu Xianying lay on the railing and said lazily, is this kid crying so hard? Guqin said calmly, it's okay. Lu Xianying asked, why don't you give Liu Xiaozhou to Qin Pingan? To be honest, Longquan sword sect and I don't really need this. He is a money man and his business is very big now, but he urgently needs this thing as the icing on the cake. There are only a few people in his sect, and Blacksmith Ruan doesn't like to talk about ostentation. Guqin said, a hot face is pressed against a cold butt. He won't accept it, so what will I get if I get on the pole? Lu Xianying was silent for a moment and sighed, I really envy you for having such a good big brother. It was rare for Guqin not to cause trouble. I hope that in the next 100 years, every time we meet again, we don't have to think about what to say, and we don't have nothing to say, only polite greetings. But Lu Xianying said something that was very embarrassing. I have always been curious, is the snot delicious? Is it salty and bland? Guqin said, do you still remember that early one morning I gave you a meat bun from Mao's shop? You actually even ate my boogers. Lu Xianying suddenly said, So that's it, I must have put it in a lot, no wonder, I just said that the meat buns tasted particularly good that day. Gukan smiled and said, the people in our hometown are simple and honest. Lu Xianyang nodded and said, I almost thought you and Qin Pingan are both heroes. Master Lu from Qinghu Palace didn't go out much when he arrived at Luapa Mountain. He helped his disciple Zhao Zhu to ask for the status of guest minister, just like an old man making plans for his descendants. Lu Yong was somewhat embarrassed. Xianxia is just the opposite. This fairy named Xuanhu goes out for a walk every chance she gets. There was really nothing she could do. Every time she returned to the house, she would pick out a proud disciple from her sleeve, Zhai Guangyun, whose Taoist name was Yun Yen. She would pester her master with questions. The most important thing was that Zhai Guangyun said something about the wheel of a car. Master, did you see Qin Yingguan when he went out this time? Has Lord Yingguan not returned to the mountain yet? Zheng Qingjia didn't dare to let this direct disciple show up, or even let her take her sleeves off her sleeves. He could only restrain her, a little nympho, for fear that she would speak out and have a bad relationship with Luo Pashan. Although he had taken refuge in Baidi City, Zheng Qingjia still felt that the Qi practitioners in the wild world were more clear-cut about love and hate than those in the Hauran world. Nowadays, in the wild mountains, there are many women who admire the red-robed hidden official at the top of the city. Zheng Qingjia often patrolled the mountain with Zhou Mili, who was honored as a mountain protector. Over time, Zheng Qingjia gradually came to realize that the strangely dressed little girl in black seemed to have no taboo content in her chat, but in fact she was truly qualified. There was not much useful information about the secret affairs of Luolu Mountain. Instead, Zheng Qingjia was asked by the little girl in black about the inside story of Jinsui City and the Wild Mountain. Could it be that this seemingly innocent cave realm, mute who to the water monster is lighting himself up? Zheng Qingjia was dubious about this at first until one day during a mountain patrol, Zhou Mili seemed to be chatting away. He mentioned that Jing Qing had a wide range of friends, and that he and Qin Zhuoliu and Mr. Mei Qin were both drinking and boxing friends. After hearing this, Zheng Qingjia's heart was shocked when he said that. That man named Xen, holding a long sword and carrying 3,000 breaking the array, had previously caused so much trouble in the wild world with a certain scholar who wore a high crown and an iron sword. Outsiders may not know it clearly, but Zheng Qingjia has heard about it. As a result, she listened to the innocent little girl that day again, and said that Jing Qing was always talking about it now, and she would have to make up for it when she saw that nephew Zheng Shi, who liked to wear white clothes and looked like a rich man in the future. As a meeting gift, she fulfilled her duties and wishes as an elder. The fairy of Xuanhu Lake almost had her heart broken on the spot. After that, Zheng Qingjia never went out for a walk again. I am extremely certain that Zhou Zongfeng really meant what he said. Every word was a mystery and his words were on target. He was trying to point her to Zheng Qingjia. I quietly passed by Zheng Qingjia's house twice, both times with the door closed. The little girl in black, carrying a cotton bag across her body, scratched her face. Yes, it was probably Sister Qingjia who felt that mountain patrols were not interesting and it was hard to say anything clearly, so she declined in this way. I understand, Sister Qingjia is ordering her. My little brain is so bright. A Dali military ferry docked at Nujiadu. On the ferry, there appeared several ministers from the Ministry of Justice hanging with "Nothing Happened" signs, and a group of Dali monks wearing armor and sabers accompanying the army. It is obvious that although this ferry is not big, the standard of this trip is quite high. Some thoughtful people at the ferry could tell at a glance that there must be important people from Dali on board. The person in charge was a handsome man with a vermilion wine gourd hanging from his waist, Chao Gingxin, the minister of the Ministry of Officials in the capital of Li Dynasty. He revisited his old place and was filled with regret. There are also two members of the earthly branch of Dali, children of the Yuan family of Shangzhou Kingdom, Yuan Ingjing sword cultivator Yuan Huijing. Zhou Haijing, the mountaintop female master who complements the earthly branches. The purpose of their trip south to Chuzhou was to 16 people to practice in Luapa Mountain. These Taoist monks and martial arts wizards ranged in age from 9 to 18 years old. On the Luolu mountainside, the only people responsible for picking up people here are a stern-faced boy in green, and a man squatting on the cliffside railing to pick his nose and bounce it off. Since there is no sword talisman according to the rules, this group of outsiders need to walk to Chaoyu Mountain, which is a long journey. Chao Gingxin, who had been a kiln supervisor for many years, obviously did not have a close relationship with the man with sinister eyebrows. The two parties strode towards each other, high-fived each other, and then held each other tightly. The capital has good soil and water, and Supervisor Chao is getting more and more. He looks more masculine now. Brother Dafeng is still charming and has a sharp eye. Zhou Haijing only felt that the man with a dirty temperament and bad appearance had a very dirty look, but she was already used to it and didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Zheng Dafeng whispered, "This girl is so pretty, isn't she my sister-in-law?" Chao Gingxin sighed. It was all his fault that he had a bad mouth and ended up as a mute eating cactus. Before his uncle Chao Ping led the troops to the barbaric world, he directly issued a military order, telling him to marry Zhou Haijing back home. Zheng Dafeng understood by heart that it must be the kind of ambiguous relationship that you have not yet had a bite of. Friends and wives should not be bullied. Zheng Dafeng averted his eyes and patted Chao Gingxin on the shoulder. "Wolfberry tea, snake gall wine, brothers have it all. Yes, take care of it. It can replenish the kidneys and strengthen the yang. It has great effects. You have to insist on it. Don't be thin-skinned and be polite with your brother. The way to fight on the bed is to tolerate no politeness from you. You must not have the intention to kill the thief and cannot kill the thief. Don't take it off." When I tried to pull up my pants again, the woman asked with confusion on her face, "Are you feeling better?" Chao Gingxin felt his scalp numb when he heard that. He quickly grabbed Zheng Dafeng's arm and interrupted the other party's quarrel. "Let's talk about this. Let's get down to business first. I'm a guest at Luapa Mountain this time. I have a lot of responsibility." Zheng Dafeng chuckled and said, "Not a small thing? The two armies are facing each other. They just send out troops and end them in a hurry. They beat the drums and withdraw the troops. There are still medicines and wines that can help. But if a woman asks, 'Have you come in?' that's okay. It's really God's will and it can't be restored by manpower." Chao Gingxin couldn't resist, but luckily Zheng Dafeng hadn't forgotten the method of gathering sound into a line, otherwise Zhou Haijing would have listened and he would have fallen into the pit. Chao Gingxin quickly took out a booklet and secretly handed it to Zheng Dafeng. "I was not idle this time when I went out. I even suspected that my elbows were turned outward. I focused on Brother Dafeng and Luo Luoshan. There were some 16 words written on the booklet. People's trivial matters can serve as a supplement to the official archives of the imperial court." Zheng Dafeng put it into his sleeve calmly and said with a smile, "I'm interested. My brother wants to say thank you. We will see our true love at the wine table later." The boy in green coughed a few times, shook his sleeves, clasped his fists high, and introduced himself. "My name is Qin Lingjun, my Taoist name is Jing Qin. I am worshipped by the Jisa Peak Ancestral Master Hall. I want to talk about my realm. I have met Mr. Chao and I have met all of you. Distinguished guests from the capital." Chao Gingxin nodded and said with a smile, "Ancestor Jingqing is famous far and wide." Qin Lingjun immediately showed his true form with a proud face, hands on his hips. "Hey hey hey. Governor Chao has a sharp eye and can drink at the table. There is no need to sit at the same table with the Zhua Guardian of Qilong Lane." As for the group of young men and women, Qin Lingjun really didn't take it seriously. "These raw melon eggs and girl movies really don't look down on you. Now Uncle Qin, have learned a lot and have boundless magic power. I can throw out a punch casually. I'm just trying to scare you, but you won't be so frightened that your face turns pale? Can't pear blossoms bring rain and cry? Can you withstand my second punch?" Zhou Haijing asked with a smile. "I would like to ask this immortal master Jing Qing, that Pei Qian, Mr. Chen's first disciple, is she on the mountain now? She and Pei Qian are both among the 4 great masters of Aquarius continent martial arts." Zhou Haijing had already sparred with Yu Hong before when they set up a ring in Dali capital city and lost, but she believed that she could beat that old guy to death in a few years. Qin Lingjun laughed and said, "Pei Qian, you are a big girl. She is very busy. She comes and goes. She has to do some work on the construction of Dadu and Tongyi's Hao. Whoever can do it will do more." That is to say, the master of the mountain stopped him. Otherwise Chao Qinglang, a child in a certain leaderless ancestral hall in Yunyan country, or Master Zhong would have to give up his seat to him. Zhou Haijing was a little unsure about the status of this kid in Tsingyi in Luo Luo Mountain. Just by his tone he didn't take Jijia Pei Chen seriously? As if he were a junior. In the Yujiang Water Mansion in the Huangting Kingdom of the Great Li Fan, he called himself a brother to the water god. He shouted 5 and 6 and was the first to follow Qin Pingan up the mountain. He was a veritable elder figure in Luolu Mountain. Later he successfully walked through the water in Jidu, Luzhou, Beiju and the nascent Soul Realm Water Dragon. She knew all this. Not far away from them there was complete silence. These 16 people have different backgrounds, family education and teachers and have their own thoughts. Each of them carries the hopes of their family, their sect, or their own expectations for themselves. But they were all curious, longing, nervous, uneasy and fascinated. Just because I will soon see that Luo mountain with my own eyes, and see the legendary Qinpingan up close. The founder of Luapa mountain in Chuzhou, Dali, and the head of the Qingping sword sect in Tonggishao. The last hidden official of the Sword Qi Great Wall, a close disciple of the literary saint lineage, the junior disciple of Xiuhu Chui Chan, the master of the Great Li State, the Taoist companion of Ning Yao, the culprit who killed the chief disciple of the great ancestor of the wilderness, and the sword on the city wall of Tuoyue Mountain. The person who carved the words, the Zhejiang warrior who fought with Chao Xiai in the battle between Qing and Bai, and the person who joined hands with Lu Xianying to ask the sword Jingyang Mountain. Not to mention the protagonist, Qin Pingan, in a certain landscape travel book, etc. There are so many status titles and so many deeds and feats that one hand can't count them all. Zhou Haijing smiled charmingly, helped many children, and asked a key question. Is Master Qin a noble person who forgets things too much? Why doesn't he take time out of his busy schedule to see us? Zheng Dafeng said casually, not to mention meeting our Master Qin, these 16 people may not even be able to climb Luolu Mountain once in the next many years. Zhou Haijing was always arrogant with his words, so he pretended to be surprised and said, Wow, I've seen it. Is this the so-called shop bully? Zheng Dafeng glanced at Chao Gingxin. My sister-in-law always speaks in such a subtle way you don't care. Is he also a strict wife? Chao Gingxin smiled and pretended to be stupid. Zheng Dafeng's gaze was like throwing a basin at Chao Gingxin. Definitely not accepted. Yuan Huajing reminded her from the bottom of her heart. Zhou Haijing, please pay attention to your identity. Once the 12 earthly branch monks from Dali arrived, they were nominally under the jurisdiction of Chao Gingxin. Everyone knew the truth. To put it simply, Chao Gung's heart is at most managing things, but Qin Pingan can manage people or both people and things. It just depends on whether Qin Pingan is willing to manage things. Furthermore, don't you know that Qin Pingan is now the greatly imperial master? If Qin Pingan and His Majesty the Emperor hadn't done this deliberately, this news would have been known throughout the continent. Zheng Dafeng then led the group of distinguished guests from the capital on foot to Luolu Mountain. Chen Lingjun, who really regarded himself as the ancestor of Jingqing, had his tail raised to the sky, but he used a trick to spread clouds and rain, driving up a white cloud and slowly floating in the sky. The 16 people had different moods when they saw this scene in the immortal family. They didn't know much about this old immortal of Yuanying realm, who had the same surname as Qin, the young hermit official. They only knew that Patriarch Jingqing had a rejuvenated appearance. He liked peace and quiet and didn't want to go out. He was mostly the kind of person who just wanted to live in peace with the world. He is a righteous Taoist who is willing to live in seclusion in the mountains to practice Taoism, and only wants to achieve immortality. Therefore, the only time he appeared in the outside world was during the Guanli Xingyang mountain. However, I heard that this Patriarch Jingqing and Phi the relationship between Yunshan Night Tour God and Lord is irreversible. Others go up the mountain to practice Taoism, but the boy in Xingyi really goes up the mountain just to go up the mountain. Walking on the Niujiao Crossing Mountain Road, Zhou Haijing suddenly asked a question about Zheng Dafeng. He is obviously a worldly master with a unique heart. Why do he pretend to be a villain and annoy others? What's the point? She has also seen more than a dozen names like the gods on the mountain who are flying high in the clouds and mist, some Qi practitioners who like to pretend to be profound, the martial arts masters who are approachable, and the people in the world who pretend to be informal but are actually just being lazy. It is still rare for someone to be so afraid of others treating him as a superior person. Chao Gung thought for a while and replied seriously, people who know themselves too clearly are more rootless and drift with the water. Before entering the sea, they want to say a few more words to the shore, for fear of being remembered too much. But am afraid of being forgotten too quickly. Zhou Haijing asked casually, why doesn't the Dali court increase the proportion of Qi practitioners among officials? Except for the Song clan of Dali, all countries in the continent wanted to have more Qi practitioners in their temples, whether they were serving as civil servants, military generals, or worshipping guests. Chao Gingxin said casually, the rotten air is like a steamer, and it is easy to discourage the vigorous energy. Zhou Haijing took a deep look at this drunkard Chao, who was admitted to squatting in a manhole and not shitting, but was able to achieve a smooth career in officialdom. He was quite insightful. Zheng Dafeng deliberately didn't look at the flirtatious flirting with his concubine over there. It was disgusting. I'm also a little sad, wondering when the hard days will come to an end. Drought will kill me and flood will kill me. A rickety old man wearing a blue shirt and long coat and cloth shoes had been waiting at the gate of Tuyu Mountain in the feudal clan early. There was also a white-haired boy standing with a festive look on his face. A pen in one hand and a booklet in the other, eager to try. It's been done. This time 16 came in one breath. All of them were chi practitioners below the earth immortal level and martial arts warriors below the third realm of God refining. Happy events happen every year, but there are so many today. Next to the old cook, there was Xuanhuan, who really didn't want to be standing here. Xuanhuan looked embarrassed and said, "Mr. Zhu, can I really teach others boxing?" Zhu Lian said with a smile, "You are one of the two candidates appointed by the Mountain Master to teach boxing, the chief and the deputy. You don't have to doubt the Mountain Master's vision of people." From the first moment Xuanhuan saw him, she had never doubted Shanzhu Chen's vision, and she had no doubt about it. Xuanhuan only gradually changed his attitude very later. "Mr. Zhu, is this a pun?" Not only did he say that Shanzhu Chen had not misjudged him, but he was also implying that he had not misjudged Shanzhu Chen. Zhu Lian couldn't help but laugh and didn't say anything more. The principle is to be afraid of the unexpected, and the world is afraid of misunderstanding. But Xuanhuan misunderstood Master Chen, and Zhu Lian didn't think there was anything wrong with it. On the contrary, it was a unique beauty of his own Luoluo Mountain. The dignified mountain owner of Luolu Mountain was walking on the mountain road in his own territory. He passed by the female martial artist who was walking non-stop. One thought that the other woman was deliberately not looking at him. There must be 300 taels of silver in this place. The other thought, if I just take a few glances at my fellow warriors in an upright manner, I will be suspected of being a disciple. But if I don't take a glance, I have a guilty conscience. Whether I look at it or not, it is wrong. Is it unfair or not? Xuanhuan asked curiously, even if the Mountain Master has heavy affairs and cannot escape, wouldn't it be better to teach boxing to Pei Qian? Is it because Tonggishao is constructing a large tunnel and there is no need for her? Zhu Lian shook his head and said, Pei Qian is only suitable for learning boxing, not for teaching boxing to others. Why? Pei Qian Z. Xuanhuan was confused. Zhu Lian patiently explained, Pei Qian's boxing is her own boxing. Because Pei Qian's boxing, fisting, and boxing techniques are all unique to her. Even if she is willing to give her money to teach him, she wants to lend her boxing. No matter who looks at it or observes it repeatedly, the other party will not be able to catch it or learn it. Everything about Pei Qian's boxing is drawn inward. The reason why our Mountain Master is Pei Qian's master is that he can both draw his spirit inward. Or you can distract yourself from the outside, then as long as the mountain owner is willing, you can let the bystanders and boxing students understand it clearly at first sight. Xuanhuan was a little sad. I have worked hard to learn martial arts and practice boxing, but it seems that I can't compete with a talent. Zhu Lian smiled and said, Don't compare your talent with Pei Qian, it's very boring. At this point there are only a few in the world except Lin Jiangxian, Pei Bei and Chao Xi, even our mountain masters are included. No one dared to casually ask questions about the same situation as Pei Qian. Do you think that when Pei Qian was a child he went to the Great Wall of Sword Qi and used lame excuses like sleepwalking to fool the mountain master? To tell you the truth, the mountain master was in the bamboo house back then. On the second floor, I once wanted to teach Quan Pei Qian in the same situation, but the result was similar to yours, he fell to the ground after just one move. Xuanhuan couldn't hold back her laughter. This was the first time she heard of such a thing. She asked cautiously, Why doesn't Master Chen let Mr. Zhu teach boxing? Zhu Lian smiled and said, Unfortunately, I have already made an appointment with the mountain owner to fight. The two parties agreed that we will fight in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom during the heavy snowfall this year. Before that, I have to think carefully about how to fight. It looks a lot better to lose. Wearing a snow-white robe with a slender figure, he always smiles when he sees him. It is because Zhang Lu has a long life that she is half a head taller than Xuanhuan. Some people think that the director of Luoluo Shan is very gentle and touching, while others find him terrifying and very captivating. I don't know who selected the 4 giants of Luoluo Shan. Zhu Lian, the great steward, was in charge of longevity, and Wei Wenlong of Chuanfu was the chief minister of Zhoufei. From the time he went up the mountain to this day, Changxing seemed to have never been blushing with anyone. Changxing smiled and said, The mountain master did not show up this time. Do these children have some thoughts in their hearts? Zhu Lian smiled and said, That's not the case. Nowadays in the Great Li dynasty, there are countless people who want to go to Luapa Mountain. The criminal department of the imperial court is very careful about the selection of people, and they will not be stupid. Get a few narrow-minded children and send them to us. Although half of them are from related households and come from the Greatly family and the immortal mansion on the mountain, their status is nothing. Therefore, the Ministry of Punishment selects people. In addition to the aptitudes for cultivating Taoism and practicing martial arts, one must be outstanding in first class, and one's character must not be bad, otherwise one day a piece of mouse droppings will ruin the pot of porridge, turn good things into bad things, and bring trouble to the Greatly court. I responded to Luopa Mountain, haha. Not to mention that the minister of the Ministry of Punishment will instruct the officials of the headquarters who were responsible for selecting people to be severely punished by then. He will definitely have to hold the family and the immortal mansion behind someone accountable. I am afraid that even His Majesty the Emperor will have to personally intervene in this matter. So each of these 16 people know in their own minds that if they dare to be ignorant when they arrive at Luolu Mountain, they will probably not even have the chance to be sensible in the future. Luopa Mountain is willing to place expectations on them and cultivate them carefully, which is not the reason why these children think they can meet Master Qin if they want to. Wei Bo, who wore a golden ring in his earrings, appeared out of thin air at the foot of the mountain. Julien smiled and said, Yeo Shinjun has come to join in the fun, so he is not afraid that the ostentation will be too big and scare the fledgling children. Wei Bo was too lazy to answer. This new name was shouted out most happily by the little boy in Tsing-yi among the poor people in the mountain. Whoever dares to disrespectfully call Wei Shanjun, Brother Wei, he will become impatient and will not give up until he corrects the other person. When Qin Pingan returns to Luopa Mountain and has someone to support him, and Qin Lingjun is on Wei Bo's side, it will be a big deal. Wei Bo wanted to deal with Qin Lingjun for more than a day or two. Wei Bo remembered something. The old deaf boy of the Great Sword Chi Wall, whose Taoist name is Long Sheng, and whose alias is Gontang, fell down on the battlefield of the Great Sword Chi Wall, visited the wild dojo and then rose to the top again. Now the old deaf boy is still ascended to the realm. He will soon come to Luolu Mountain to serve as a registered worshipper. The white-haired boy muttered, It's really unlucky that someone from the Ascension realm comes to worship him again. Can't you imitate Jinghao, the Taibao of Luxiazi Qinggong, who goes up the mountain to drink and then get out? Changxing asked, What do you think of Guizhuzhou? Wei Bo asked strangely, Why does Changshu Zhanglu ask this? Zhu Lian, however, was very knowledgeable and said, My Taoist friend Changshu has only been a priest for a few years, and he already wants to give up his career. Isn't it appropriate? Only then did Wei Bo understand. Changxing smiled and said, Of course I am not resigning from the position of chief executive immediately, but I feel that if this matter is really feasible, I can make preparations early. Changxing actually has an idea in his mind about the next candidate for Luolu Mountain's leader, who is Guizhuzhou, the direct disciple of the mountain leader, who comes from the Great Wall of Sword Chi and has been to the Summer Palace. Previously, they accompanied the mountain owner on a trip to the Damu Temple in the Lotus Root Blessed Land. Changxing looked at Guizhuzhou with admiration and was very optimistic about it. No matter how much he saw it, he was satisfied. Guizhuzhou is the bitter hand of fellow senior sister Pei Qian. The white-haired boy pulls the girl in the mink hat and worships Guizhuzhou as the leader of the alliance. These things may seem like a joke, but in fact if you look deeper it is not that simple. A Liuxia boat approached the border of Chuzhou. Qin Pingan called Pu Lu and Guanggue to Xinku. They sat down in the house and said straight to the point, You will soon follow Gukan to Fuyao Island to establish a sect and become a brand new sect. The first generation of ancestors. For a long time, it is not easy to be respected by people inside and outside the mountain. Don't get used to it over time. Parting is imminent, and ugly words are ahead. If I can send you in, I can drag you out. When the time comes, Gukan won't be able to stop her even if she wants to, and besides he may not be able to stop her. The two of them were silent. The nascent soul realm old woman, whose real name was Su Fu, trembled and plucked up the courage to break the silence. We will follow Mr. Chen's teachings. They are all top-notch people. When it comes to the relationship and friendship between Gukan and Qin Pingan, they have seen and heard it with their own eyes. If Qin Pingan really wanted to deal with them, he didn't even need to say a word. When they met he just looked at Gu Zongzhu. Gukan would definitely kill them without saying a word. The leader of a sect cleans up the family in his own territory and does not need to report to the Chinese Confucian temple. Xinku suffered the most at the hands of Qin Jianxian. In those bleak years, when ghosts were beating against the wall, how could the suffering be dismissed with just a word? Since the old woman Pu Lu had taken the advantage, the old master immediately stood up, clasped his fists and said in a deep voice, Qin Jianxian, Xinku has now awakened and changed his past. If it weren't for Qin Jiangxian's love, he would be lucky enough to follow sect master Gu and make a fortune. With his genealogical identity, he dared to say something conscientious at this moment. From the first step of leaving that world, Xianxia made up his mind. In this life, no matter how many years or decades he had left to live, he would just run for the future. A good person does good deeds. Qin Jiangxian's Taoism is endless. You should know that these words written by Qin Shen are extremely sincere words from his heart, and not a single word is a false pretense. Xianxia even stood up to express his stance, and even the old woman Su Fu and the ghost Guan Piao had to stand up to show their sincerity. Qin Pingan put his hands in his sleeves, nodded and smiled. There is no doubt that what I said is true. We have to wait and see whether it is true or false. We have agreed in advance that if you have the ability to make me believe it today, I will be there tomorrow. If you lied to me about anything, it would be a double crime. The more Xianxia talked, the more energetic he became. He just kept one thought clear to the end, risked it all, and said loudly, "Just never give Qin Jianxian a chance to misjudge Xianxia." Qin Pingan stretched out his hand and pressed twice, indicating that they all sit down and chat. "There is no need to be so formal. I will let Gukan help you light a life-extending lamp in the ancestral hall, and I won't give you a heavy hand. If you are greedy for life and fear of death, you will not dare to take it. Opportunities for good people to do good things." As soon as Xianxia touched the chair with his buttocks, he quickly stood up and thanked Qin Jianxian again. The old master was overjoyed. Is such a good thing really possible? Su Fu and Guan Gui looked at each other and lit a life-extending lamp in the ancestral hall, which was really equivalent to saving another life. Qin Pingan did not want to simply use force to suppress others, causing them to have nightmares whenever they think of the name Qin Pingan. He slowly said, "If you ask what a gentleman is, it is just a sincere and upright thought. Over time, if you hold it to the end, you will naturally facing small things is like facing a big enemy, sitting in a secret room is like sitting on a thoroughfare. Day and night, I have to examine myself 3 times and check myself. Year after year, I am determined to follow the path. I will naturally face a big enemy as if nothing has happened, and I am in a busy city. Who can be in this world? Who can bully me in terms of profit? Who can insult me in name? Who can truly hold me accountable for hundreds of years?" The room was like a secret room. The 3 of them chewed these words carefully, but no one dared to be the first to break the silence. Everyone was filled with admiration. Anyway, Xianxia felt that Shan Zhuqian was worthy of being a Zijing martial artist with powerful boxing skills. He spoke calmly and delivered heavy punches, making others have the urge to kneel down and kowtow in worship. Ghost Guan Peep, who had also been a teacher, felt that Qin Pingan was worthy of being a disciple of literary saint. The old woman Su Fu felt that Qin Jianxian and Ning Yao were a match made in heaven. Qin Pingan was actually quite embarrassed, so he had to joke, "Don't be confused and confused, quickly take out a pen and paper and write down these few words of wisdom." The solemn atmosphere suddenly relaxed a little and Qin Pingan said, "The separation is imminent, so how about we both think of each other's good things?" Xianxia had already found some mysterious feeling, and before the other 2 people could say anything, he had already said, "Xin Shen is so sincerely convinced, how dare you disobey your order?" For some reason Xianxia was scared to death of Luapa Mountain before, but now Xianxia felt that he was not afraid even going up the mountain. Xianxia was the first to say anything nice, so Su Fu and Guango had no choice but to follow suit. Qin Pingan stood up and walked to the window, smiling and saying, "There is an old saying in our hometown which says that a person cannot be poor. If he has no money in his pocket, it may be temporary. If he is poor, he will be poor for a lifetime." Su Fu and Guanxiu looked at Xianxia at the same time. The old grandmaster looked puzzled but asked them with his eyes, "Aren't you all flatterers? Xin gave you the opportunity but you didn't use it." Lu Xianying clicked his tongue and said in surprise, "You said the custom of Luolu Mountain is strange, isn't it?" Gukan nodded with a smile and said, "If you smoke a cage with orchid, it will smell fragrant over time?" Huang Lai had no choice but to think of a word to echo, "Qin Shan has done a great job. When we reach Niujiao Ferry we are close to Luapa Mountain. Nothing happens today, even if you don't make money it is still valuable." Another uneventful day for the little ferry. The group of 16 people who climbed to Qiaoyu Mountain instead of Luolu Mountain felt a little less disappointed because they saw the long-lived Taoist patriarch at the foot of the mountain. Even though the real owner still didn't show up, Luolu Mountain did not treat them as dispensable, as a completely negligible existence. But they didn't know that Qin Pingan was actually sitting at the top of the steps of Qiaoyu Mountain Road at that time. Not only that but also Lu Jianxian and the madman Gukan. It was just a cover-up trick that prevented them from seeing it. Lu Xianying wanted to sit in the middle, but Gukin refused, so Lu Xianying moved his seat. As a result, Gukin followed him and moved his seat. Lu Xianying became angry and asked his eldest brother to take a small limelight. What the hell? Lu Xianying, who still couldn't succeed, said angrily, "Little slugs, they are all the people who are about to become the leader of the clan. Are you naive?" Gukin chuckled and said, "I'm naive but you're not." When Lu Xianying learned that Qin Pingan would not show up today, it didn't matter. He immediately got up and left, patting his and leaving. If he didn't stay here he would have his own place to stay. Sect leader Lu first went to the Longshu River near the blacksmith shop. Being familiar with the road, I put a duck under both arms and went back to my mountain to stew duck with bamboo shoots and dried duck. It's a pity that it can't be called Old Duck Pot, it's a little older. Qin Pingan and Gu can return to Jiling Peak. The young Guan was polite in his words, and xianxia couldn't be more polite. This made Qin Pingan a little confused. It was actually the first time that Gu Kan and this Jinquiching fairy named Xuanhu met, and the arrangement was simple. Lu Yuzhou was the deputy sect master, and Xianxia was regarded as the god of wealth in name only. Pei Qian had no choice but to use the Three Mountains talisman again, leaving the fish scale fairy in Tonggishao and arriving at the lotus root blessed land. Pei Qian first went to the Xinxiang temple in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom. The martial arts surged forward, but Pei Qian once again smashed them away with his fists. The martial arts luck fell like rain on the blessed land of the world. On the top of a strange mountain somewhere, Pei Qian then replaced Qin Pingan's highest position. In addition to the first level of martial arts, which is equivalent to just stepping into the martial arts, there are a total of 8 levels from the second level to the mountaintop level, and there are 8 positions on the top of the mountain. Coupled with the third level of the end, the energy is strong, the true state is restored, and the spirit is reached. So there are 11 positions in total. For thousands of years, every genius martial artist has competed with his contemporaries to win. If he reaches the strongest level in each moment, and ascends to the next level, he can receive a gift of martial arts from heaven and earth. But for 10,000 years, there have been countless warriors in the world. The number of warriors who have reached the next level with the title of the strongest is not small, but those who can come here to stand for a while, especially those who cannot give up their position, are without exception. He is a genius among martial arts geniuses. But in less than 200 years, most of the old faces on the mountaintop were quickly replaced. Qingming Tianxiaolin Jiangxian, the Yashan forest master, is now the well-deserved #1 martial artist in the world. This person, whose real name was the great sword chi priest of the state of Yen, came to this place once to return to his true form. Pei Bei, the female martial arts goddess of the Daduan dynasty and the best martial artist in the world, has a place on the top of the mountain. As Pei Bei's direct disciple, Chao Ci, dressed in white, occupies 4 positions here. Qin Pingan had also been here before, but within a few days he was squeezed out of his position by his founding disciple. So here and now there are 2 Pei Qian of different ages. First there is a weird little black girl. Then there is a young woman with a bun. Pei Qian failed to see the master here. She said nothing and stood on the top of the mountain waiting for a long time. When she found that her mind still had not returned to where she was, she walked down the mountain silently, not even bothering to say anything to that being. The strange existence who once again made an exception for Pei Qian walked beside her and said with a smile, "Not bad, he showed up sooner than I expected." Pei Qian was already in a bad mood, but she just remembered that her master had received half a punch. She endured it again and again, and did not say a word that it was none of your business. The ancestor of the military strategist who used his fists to open up a martial arts path for the world 10,000 years ago said with a smile, "You can't hold grudges for that fluttering half-fist until now, right?" Pei Qian really endured it again and again but finally couldn't help it. He just didn't forget to say the word senior first and then said, "Why do you have such a bad mouth? I feel that I was disrespectful in my words and deeds when I went up and down the mountain last time. If you have the ability, come at me and put the blame on my master. What kind of hero do you think you are?" The ancestor of the military strategist laughed heartily and said, "That boy Qin Pingan, his boxing skills are acceptable, just average. He is far behind Chao Ci, but his ability to recruit disciples is quite good." Pei Qian learned a lesson and was worried that this guy didn't follow any moral principles, so she just went down the mountain in silence and said nothing. In the past, Xiao Haitan's temper would have taught you what firecrackers are and what smoke rising from ancestral graves is. The first ancestor of the military strategist escorted Pei Qian all the way to the foot of the mountain and said with a smile, "Go back and tell Qin Pingan that you can come to the foot of the mountain to talk." Just the bottom of the mountain? Pei Qian said angrily, "Senior is so capable, please invite my master yourself." The tall man with a vague figure stretched out his hand as if he wanted to rub Pei Qian's head. "Who cares about this temper?" Pei Qian turned away and glared at him. The next moment, just as Pei Qian was about to turn his head and look towards the top of the mountain, his mind was thrown out of this vast world. A man wearing a snow-white robe with pure golden eyes stood on the top of the mountain with his hands in sleeves, condescending, and the burly man who turned to look at him, narrowed his eyes and smiled. "I came uninvited, I am half an old friend. Let's meet again. If you're not convinced, then, have a fight?" The first ancestor of the military strategist stared at that figure and sneered, "You're just half a man, how dare you pretend to be a master and scare me? I never thought that a tall woman would appear next to that man, leaning on the ground with a sword, scaring you?" Sword of Coming Chapter 1228. Chapter 1228. Teaching boxing and preaching. Standing on the top of the mountain is Qin Pinggan's mind and sword holder. Previously we traveled far away together to a secret sword-making place. The first ancestor of the military strategist sneered, "Pretending, you finally look like a human being. It is both the greatest compliment and the greatest irony." Qin Pinggan smiled and said, "A life of frustration has led to today, and old friends on the road have withered so far. If you and the sword cultivator hadn't wanted to occupy the old heaven and parted ways with the founder of the three religions, leading to the first schism in the world, otherwise your military strategist would have long ago Li Jiao, you will not end up in a situation where you will be beheaded first and then imprisoned for 10,000 years. Now that you think about it, do you regret it?" The first ancestor of the military strategist strode up the mountain and said sarcastically, "My identity has changed and my tone has also changed. The pure martial artist who I was before did not dare to talk to me like this. It is raining from the sky, haha, it is raining from the sky, the founder of the three religions. I am really not afraid. As time goes by, your kid has been transformed into a Taoist? The one in the sky cannot be broken, so they can only surround it and sit there for thousands of years facing Zhou and the new gods. You both look at me and I look at you. If you stare blankly, there will be another one in the world. Wouldn't it be a disaster?" Zhou ascended to the sky. Qin Pinggan was on the ground, each taking half. Of course, it's not Zhou or Qin Pinggan, it's the co-lord of the heavenly court who turned around after 10,000 years. Whether it's Houran Jiaxing or Qin Pinggan of Mubatal Alley, they all got to where they are today step by step. Like the two of them divided the family property equally. The ancestor of the military strategist was chopped down by a sword from the top of the mountain and retreated to the foot of the mountain. The burly man just stretched out his hand to grab it, pulled out the abundant sword energy that was as difficult as a long river of time from his body, and threw it away thousands of miles away. Outside there was an earth-shaking vibration. The burly man didn't even look at it and just climbed the mountain again. There were no words this time, and he just walked silently to the mountainside, only to be hit back to the foot of the mountain by a magnificent sword light pouring down the mountain like a waterfall in the Tianhe River. The sword energy was condensed and spread all over the mountain. The ancestor of the military strategist used his fists to open the way, forcibly creating a huge gap, and went upstream. He laughed and said, "It's light and weak. Compared with thousands of years ago, the sword's energy is even stronger. It doesn't increase but decreases. It seems that the previous battle with the armored man has severely damaged the divinity. Haha, the dog bites the dog and the hair is all over the ground. It's pitiful to say that it's pathetic. How can I compare to you, a couple of dogs and a man and a woman who share half of the heaven? The bearer of divinity, the new owner of the place where half of the down and out lives, and the most lethal sword holder ever." The third sword slashed the burly man into two, but the latter instantly returned to his original appearance. He did not continue to climb the mountain, nor spoke again, but stood there halfway up the mountain. Qin Pinggan smiled and said, "Hand over the three swords, that's enough etiquette." The tall woman smiled and nodded. The first ancestor of the military strategist just returned to the top of the mountain in a gloomy mood. But he remembered two things, so he endured it. A man has clear grudges, and when he looked at Qin Pinggan, he was a little more pleasing to the eye. Qin Pinggan looked at the ancestor of the military strategist and suddenly felt strange. "I heard that the person before me 10,000 years ago was famous for being arrogant, saying many exciting words, and also saying many jaw-dropping wild words. For example, the sentence, 'When I open up a complete martial arts path, all races in the world can join me in becoming gods in the flesh. They no longer need to rely on the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to feed themselves, and there is no need to worship or offer incense to anyone. Only by establishing a religion in this way can we be worthy of being called ancestors. Another example is, let me raise one more level of martial arts, and I can beat up the Taoist ancestor with one hand. Today's discussion: if you are a sword cultivator who no longer wants to be inferior to anyone else, and who wants to go to the ruins of heaven to refine swords and make the final decision, come on, stand on my side and compete with the founders of the three religions on the opposite side. Although this ancestor of the military strategist lost, he never gave up. The tall woman smiled and said, I am very forgetful. I just remembered that I came here. It seems that I broke the rules. The young master was a little unhappy and reminded me to leave quickly. The first ancestor of the military strategist then suggested, why don't you go? Just stay here and have a fight with the young master. According to the etiquette of thousands of years ago, whoever wins will listen. Qin Pingan said, then you go back first. The tall woman nodded and said, Master, don't forget the promise of Jiazi. Qin Pingan smiled and said, I have a good memory. The first ancestor of the military strategist finally breathed a sigh of relief when the sword wielder, one of the 5 supreme masters, left this ancient star that was both a prison and a dojo. After all, a common attack had injured Daoji too much, and he had completely lost his true body. The 3 soft sword blows had already made him feel overwhelmed for a long time. He sat cross-legged on the top of the mountain and began to peel off those lingering ghosts. The scattered remaining sword energy, every time a sword energy is thrown out, it may contain several ancient swordsmanship, creating ravines a million miles long in the Star Dojo, and finally it will flick off with just one finger. With his pure swordsmanship, he smashed a hole hundreds of miles deep. If it weren't for the help of the Li Sheng to cover up the celestial phenomena, the Yin-Yang family, 5 Elements family and Qintian supervisor Qi masters in the world would probably have suffered. Chen Pingan said, Zenwushin Yu Shiwu, he is willing to return the 3 martial arts fortunes of the seniors. For the sake of saving 2 steps, can the seniors keep Yu Shiwu when they get back those martial arts fortunes? Mental memory: try not to hurt the foundation of his soul? In fact, there is some suspicion that some pots are not opened and which pots are not mentioned. The first military dissolution in the world turned out to be a joint beheading and dismemberment. Talking about this as soon as we meet is really rubbing salt into the wound. The first ancestor of the military strategist put his fists on his knees and showed no signs of anger. He said calmly, you can make another request. The implication is that you agree to this matter? So easy to talk to? Then we, as juniors, have to talk a little more, right? Although Qin Pingan was confused, he still thought about it carefully and said, my founding disciple Pei Qian, her photographic memory is different from that of ordinary Qi practitioners. Does your senior have a proper solution? The ancestor of the military strategist, who had his back to Qin Pingan, softened his tone a bit and said, change your request. Although Qin Pingan felt regretful, he had no choice but to change his request and said, Senior, when you come down the mountain, you can go sit in the lotus root blessing of the junior in your free time. The first ancestor of the military strategist sneered, who do you think I am, that I want to imitate the mountain and find a tree pillar to sit on? Judging from his tone, it was obvious that he was unwilling to go to lotus root blessed land to help take charge of the mountains and rivers. Now that Qin Pingan has settled the matter of Yu Shiwu with his senior, he is actually quite surprised. He originally thought that good things will be long-lasting, and even prepared the worst plan of breaking up if he disagreed with him. Now that he has achieved his goal, Qin Pingan no more trying to push the envelope. Just accept it as soon as you see fit. Unexpectedly, the ancestor of the military strategist had no intention of letting Qin Pingan go immediately. He came and left whenever he wanted. What kind of place was this? Prepare the toilet with corn clothes? Qin Pingan didn't care, he just settled down as he came, and simply started to observe the 11 warriors standing on the top of the mountain. Qin Pingan, who was squeezed out of the 10th level of Qi by his eldest disciple and was no longer in the dark, actually didn't feel surprised at all. He said that he had no regrets in his heart. That would be a lie to himself, but in the end he was more happy. But how come Qin Pingan, the 9-level man in red robe, was also squeezed out? After all, Qin Pingan is really confident that he will not move here for a long time. It is himself who has been unprecedented for thousands of years. This is an established fact. Even Qin Pingan, who is as cautious as Qin Pingan, feels that this person has hoped to achieve this at least within a few hundred years. No one will come after you. No matter what, in less than a year, Qin Pingan lost 2 seats at the top of the mountain one after another. Qin Pingan couldn't help but feel a little melancholy. He squatted down and looked at the latecomer who had seized the territory. The other party was quite easy to recognize. Among the 11 seats, there was only this strange martial artist. He sat cross-legged on the ground with his back straight and his hands folded on his abdomen. The muscles in his arms were tangled, and his appearance could not be seen clearly, just because his hair was hanging to the ground, even covering his entire face. This man's fists are so vast that each hair is like a waterfall pouring down slowly. As this man breathes, the hairs flutter. His body and muscles are strong and his fists are powerful, which can be said to be thrilling. Qin Pingan looked at it carefully and found it even more incredible. It turned out that every hair was covered with tens of thousands of ghosts. The first ancestor of the military strategist said with a smile, "It's normal to lose to her from the top of the mountain to the bottom level. As time goes on, they will only get stronger and stronger. The world's martial arts path will never let you and xianxia, two young boys, share the same status and steal the limelight." "How did you feel about the half-punch earlier?" Qin Pingan said truthfully, "It's a great taste to have hot pot and wine." The burly man laughed heartily. "Okay, that's a good statement. Once your sentence is over and you return to the world, you must have a hot pot and drink." Qin Pingan asked tentatively, "As long as the seniors don't mind, how about the juniors go back to the mountain, prepare hot pot and wine, and come here in person to have a good meal?" The first ancestor of the military strategist clicked his tongue and said, "As long as there is a little advantage to be taken advantage of, you really don't fall behind at all. Can those who follow you learn well?" Qin Pingan was surprised. Why did the ancestor of the military strategist's words always have an inexplicable meaning when the two sides met on the mountain top? "What qualifications do you have to tell me what my Luoyuoshen style is like?" The burly man said, "In the next 100 years, there will be a lot of monks in the 14th realm. I don't know how many will be left in the next 1,000 years." Qin Pingan nodded. "Everyone will pursue his future according to his own ability. In the end, whether it will blossom or bear fruit, the future will depend on his own ability." Carrying the true name of the demon clan and combining it with half of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Qin Pingan's immortal slew robe can actually be named Fengzheng. As a result, the battle with Ma Xuanhuan caused the robe to be broken, and there were a few fish in the wild world that had the opportunity to slip through the net. The next moment, Qin Pingan's mind returned to his true body. He was in a mansion at the foot of Fuyao, where he could lean on the railing and overlook Tiaoyu Mountain. On the top of the mountain, the burly man stood up and came to a place where he had to squat down and lower his head just to look him in the eye. The charcoal-looking little girl, with her arms folded across her chest and her head tilted, seemed to be very puzzled. "Is this stupid big guy just bragging about not drafting at my master's side? In fact, he can't eat spicy food or drink alcohol. Just the thought of eating hot pot and drinking old wine makes you unbearable? Ah, you're such a big guy, you're a loser. You're a million miles behind my master." The burly man with gentle eyes wanted to reach out and rub her little head, but the little girl glared and angrily said, "Don't touch me." The man who once took the place of the first Taoist priest in the world and continued to ascend to the sky covered his face with slightly trembling palms. "Julien, the master of Luolu Mountain, has a long life, and the king of Wei in the northern mountains." Their appearance together was scary enough for the 16 people. Especially the arrival of Beiwei Yeo Shinjun is both unexpected and reasonable. In Qiaoyu Mountain, 8 martial arts practitioners and 8 Taoists live separately. When they arrived at the mountain, Julien led them to their respective residences. The house was clean and tidy, nothing more, neither rich nor immortal. The master in charge didn't tell them any rules or taboos, he just told them to abide by their duties and be free to do whatever they wanted. As for how to calculate duty and what arbitrariness is, there is no explanation. The 2 masters, Zheng Juzhong and Xin Yuanji, who were responsible for teaching boxing to the 8 people, both lived in the mountains. Master Zheng initially wanted to be neighbors with Master Xin, but it didn't work out. And this man who didn't look like a master at all, told them with certainty as soon as they met, saying that he was one of the few martial arts masters in Aquarius continent. He was talented in boxing and was even more talented in teaching boxing. You must cherish it. On the other hand, the woman who was clearly more like a master told them straight to the point that her qualifications were average and she was not good at martial arts. If anyone felt that they had been misled, they could find someone else to teach them. But the other 8 preachers still did not show up. If Luo Shan didn't tell them, they wouldn't dare to ask. It is most difficult for the immortal family to save people by common sense. It depends on everything including talent, character, chance, acquired habits, etc. Everyone just silently practices and refines qi according to the Taoist methods they have learned before. Previously on the ferry, several boys and girls had made an appointment to go to the gate of Luapa Mountain for a stroll when they had free time. Now they were all beating in their hearts and did not dare to have such an idea. I was afraid that if I jumped into the fish mountain, I would be caught red-handed, so I told them that I could just pack up my bags and go home. Between Xiaoyu Mountain and Lualu Mountain, there is Fuyolu, which is also said to be a mountain. When the weather is clear, you can vaguely see the scenery of Fuyolu. If you are lucky, you can also see the Jisa Peak shrouded in clouds and mist. The ancestral hall of Lualu Mountain was built there. The more it looks unreal, the more curious it becomes. I look forward to the next meeting of the ancestral hall and take a look at those images of immortals riding the wind and swords like rainbows from a distance. In just a few days, the 8 people's impressions of the 2 boxing masters were greatly changed. The one surnamed Zheng was careless and had no real skills, but he was really capable. On the contrary, it was the female master surnamed Xian. If she was not deliberately hiding her clumsiness and unwilling to teach the truth, she would just be embroidering pillows and teaching the boxing moves. She was strict and orderly, nothing more. Zheng Dafeng smiled and deliberately didn't say anything. Instead, he deliberately added fuel to the fire and taught the 8 martial arts geniuses who had eyes as high as their heads a few good punches. If it is not a good piece of material, the Dali Imperial Court would not dare to send it here to waste Shanju Chen's precious time in cultivating the Taoism. They are all possessed by the fist spirit, and they have been inspected one by Qin Tianjian secretly, and they are indeed martial arts. If not, the Dali Imperial Court would not dare to send the next batch of carefully selected sword cultivators to Luapa Mountain. Every time Xuanhuan takes a break from teaching boxing, she always subconsciously purses her lips when she is alone in the martial arts arena. At night, looking at the lights on the table and the precious boxing records that Mr. Zhu compiled and hand-copied in his early years, she wanted to go to Lualu Mountain several times to find Mr. Zhu, or directly talk to Qin Pingan about this boxing. She couldn't teach him, not out of anger but because Xuanhuan really believed that his level and qualifications were not enough. When it comes to whether he has any grievances in his heart, Xuanhuan certainly has some. The sun is setting in the west, and the sky is burning with clouds, bright red, like ancient gods smashing countless corals. There are green willows in the mountains, craggy rocks at dusk, and iron accumulation in the blue sky. After Pei Qian left the lotus root-blessed land, she came to the Xiaoyu Mountain martial arts arena. She observed it secretly for a while. When Xuanhuan said to take a rest, Pei Qian was sitting on the roof. There were no whispers in the martial arts field. After all, this is the top of the vassal mountain of Luapa Mountain. God knows if there is that immortal who has used his magical power to view mountains and rivers and is looking at this place from a distance in Luapa Mountain. But they abide by the rules and dare not make any mistakes. They don't say anything with their mouths, but their eyes can speak. This made Xuanhuan feel a little uncomfortable, but he could only pretend that nothing happened. At the same time, Xuanhuan suddenly understood a truth that Mr. Zhu himself said, but unfortunately she did not feel deeply about it back then. It's because she is so blessed that she doesn't know how blessed she is. It turns out that in the past, no one took the realm seriously, not only in their eyes but also in their hearts. Xuanhuan heard someone calling Sister Xian. She heard the voice was familiar but the title was unfamiliar. She came back to her senses, turned around and saw that it was Pei Qian. Xuanhuan was stunned. She just smiled and nodded out of habit, forgetting to return the favor with her hands and fists. After all, when the 2 parties met in the past, their relationship was always so casual. When Pei Qian showed up, the martial arts arena was in an uproar. Unlike that young hermit official, Pei Qian's appearance has long been known to people in the mountains. Otherwise, in Aquarius continent today, there wouldn't be so many quaint women wearing black clothes and wearing buns, all of whom would go by the pseudonym Zheng Qian. Pei Qian, Grandmaster Pei. One of the 4 great masters of Aquarius continent Wushu, who earned the nicknames Zheng Qingming and Zheng Seiqian, for his ability on the battlefield of Dali capital. Pei Qian didn't talk nonsense to them, saying that she would stay in the 4 realms and you guys would go together. Remember, we would go together. One punch at a time, the 8 people were left lying on the ground twitching, as if they were walking around incessantly. Pei Qian looked indifferent and said, "Are they all trash? Do you deserve to come here to learn boxing? Do you also deserve Xuanhuan to teach you boxing? Get up. If you can't stand up on the count of 3, leave Xiaoyu Mountain by yourself and find another master to learn boxing. Aren't all the eyes above the eyebrows? Are you afraid that you can't find anyone to teach boxing? Sister Tsin is also a half-baked little brat like you, who has the right to look down on her?" Before Pei Qian could count to 3, There were 7 people who stood up quickly as if their buttocks were on fire. There was also a girl with the weakest body. She was helped up by a young man who looked very similar to her, but she was just swept away by Pei Qian. At one glance, her eyes instantly turned red, and her mind went blank. The girl bit her lips tightly, not daring to cry. Pei Qian said solemnly, "Walking 6 steps for 2 hours, I am exhausted, and it will take me 2 hours to crawl on the ground. If you can't do it, pack your luggage and go to the foot of the mountain to make a floor." Zheng Dafeng squatted in the distance, secretly gloating. Pei Qian looked at these people and became more and more angry. They all learned martial arts when they were young. If you get to the 2nd floor of the bamboo house, you can pack up and get out that day. When he was a child, he didn't think it was a big deal. Pei Qian and Xiaomi Li secretly nicknamed Xuanhuan Xuanhuan in secret. When Pei Qian grew up and reached a high level, he realized that it was not easy for Xuanhuan to practice boxing, but it was not easy for Xuanhuan to practice boxing. Pei Qian now treats Xuanhuan with no pity at all. It is the respect of one pure martial artist for another pure martial artist. Zheng Dafeng said with a playful smile, "Pei Qian, how to teach boxing is mainly decided by me and Xuanhuan. If you are willing to come over and help me, of course there is no problem, but whether the 8 of them stay or go, it doesn't count if you say so." Pei Qian said dully, "I understand." It was her who went beyond the rules. Zheng Dafeng said with a smile, "Don't hold grudges in the small account book, let alone secretly complain to the mountain owner." Pei Qian turned around and rolled his eyes. Zheng Dafeng stood up and patted his butt. "Did you see that you are still calling me bragging? In the early years, I often gave guidance on Grandmaster Pei's boxing. Otherwise, would she be able to listen to your Master Zheng's advice today? Besides, Grandmaster Pei and you, when Master Tsun was sparring, you were still wearing crotchless pants. Each of you, your boxing skills are not very good, but your spirit is very high. Either you are thinking about discussing the 8 classics with Master Pei in the future, or you are thinking about having the opportunity to meet with Qin Shan. Let's talk face to face, let's talk nonsense. Sirs, rich ladies, don't stand there in a daze, hurry up and start walking." Pei Qian walked to Xuanhuan and hesitated for a moment, feeling that he was still unhappy, and said, "Sister Tsun, why should you underestimate yourself? Do you have to work hard to practice boxing and keep doing millions of things to pursue one person? In the state of fists being handed out and no one in front of you, are you just talking about asking people about boxing? After learning boxing and then teaching people to learn boxing, of course it will only be more important. Shouldn't this be the truth?" Xuanhuan looked at Pei Qian's clear eyes and still pursed her lips, but she gradually raised the corners of her lips and nodded. "Xiao Haitan can also speak the truth now." Pei Qian seemed to have succeeded all of a sudden, looking embarrassed and scratching his head. It turns out that heroes are most afraid of meeting their neighbors. Neighbors know too much about youthful embarrassments and bad habits. No matter who is rich and wealthy and returns to his hometown in fine clothes, no matter what his face looks like, he will inevitably murmur in his heart, "Is it him? Just her?" At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing a blue shirt, long coat and cloth shoes appeared out of thin air and stood at the edge of the martial arts arena. Just appearing there, the 8 children who were already guilty of a capital crime became more and more out of breath, and their simple 6-step walking was more or less out of shape. The man in green shirt smiled and said, "Learn boxing well. In the future, you should cherish the boxing lessons with Zheng Dafeng and take the boxing lessons with Xuanhuan seriously. If you can't do it, go down the mountain and go back and forth wherever you come from." Just after saying this, Qin Pingan took Pei Qian and walked down the mountain. Pei Qian was a little embarrassed, but Qin Pingan smiled and said, "The teaching was good. It will be better if I teach you more calmly next time." Pei Qian nodded and said, "I am not patient enough. In fact, I was far behind them back then. It makes no sense to lose my temper today. Master, after thinking about it, I may be angry at myself for not being sensible back then." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "You have criticized yourself so much, how can Master still knock your chestnuts?" Pei Qian grinned. He meant what he said and couldn't deceive the master. Qin Pingan was a little proud of herself. Xuanhuan finally no longer looked at her like a prodigal. Even if he didn't look like him, he was just pretending to be nice. It's really not easy. Pei Qian said, "Then I will go back to Tangyi's house." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "You can stay a few more days." During the busy time of tea picking, the rural village school took a break. At that time, the Meng children were very happy. The master felt that teaching was really difficult, but as soon as school started, another Meng boy dropped out of school. Earlier at the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Qin Pingan passed on a 3 mountains talisman to the old deaf boy to facilitate the new envoy's journey to Luopa Mountain. The old deaf boy didn't know the pros and cons, so he just regarded it as an ordinary big talisman on the top of the mountain. It has magical effects and he didn't feel it was too hot. It's just a pity that this talisman has the restriction of using it 3 times, otherwise it will consume its own merit. Otherwise there is no one in the world. Isn't the Green Mountain a place for those who hold talismans to escape? However, Xiego knew the background of Mr. Sanshan, and she deliberately did not tell the old deaf child the truth. Xianxia was on Luapa Mountain, but after all, the Mr. Xiao who had not waited for the half-grandmaster followed Guken to a place called Yunyan Country in Tongye Continent. Guken said that she had many old friends there, so she prepared herself mentally. The old master of Yiluo, the great demon on the throne, looked up, and now the women of the Dequan dynasty worship Jing Xing. There is also Taoist priest Haoren who stands proudly among the heroes in the Wild Peach Pavilion where he lay sick every day in the 100,000 mountains. The entire Jinsui city had already been refined into emptiness by Mr. Zheng. Mr. Zheng taught her a technique to turn emptiness into reality. As long as Guken selected the sect address, Zheng Qingjia could take it out and take root in it. If you want to move to another place, it is easy. As for the group of genealogy monks in Jinsui city who are still kept in the dark, they are not treated as well as Zhai Guangyun. They have never been released by Zheng Qingjia and are trapped in the situation of a dog eating the sun. They are frightened and have no idea why the sky has changed. When the cross-continental ferry left Chuzhou, Zheng Qingjia took his direct disciple out of his sleeves and learned that Lord Yinguan had returned to the mountain. He also met and chatted with the master for a few words. Zhai Guangjian's eyes were full of resentment. Nian Nian, complaining that the master doesn't care about her and doesn't have the beauty of an adult. Guken smiled playfully. Zheng Qingjia had no choice but to tell this direct disciple, "Someone is in the world now. If you pester the young hidden official like this, be careful of her sword cutting off your head. The master is here when the time comes. I can only help you get your head back, and I just hope she won't mess up your true body and soul." Although Zhai Guangyun was not afraid of anything, she was still very wary of Ning Yao, who had never been masked before. The reason was simple. The higher Ning Yao's level, the more distasteful she would find in the wild world. Ouch, an Ascension Realm sword cultivator is amazing. What's so good about a woman who's about to close her shop just because her man is out drinking more wine with friends? The young hidden official is good at everything, but his single-mindedness is not so good. It would be great if he could imitate Xiao Sun, the previous hidden official, and defect from the Sword Qi Great Wall. In the wild world he would be kept for 3 years a year. 165 days, changing partners every day. Who doesn't know that the current co-leader of the wilderness, who is an outstanding swordsman, and Zhou Qinggao, a close disciple of Wenhai Zhoumi, are famous as 2 secret official supporters, Tian Zihao and Di Zihao. The Liuxia boat intentionally or unintentionally slowed down and passed by Zhongsu on Oriole Island, the boundary of Shujin Lake. He saw the young man in Confucian robes on the bow of the boat. This old Yuanying monk who was said to be the most like the genealogy monk in Shujin Lake took the initiative to board the boat and said, he changed his mind and was willing to leave the true realm genealogy and seek refuge with Gukan. I never thought that Gukan would also say that he had changed his mind. Even if you, Zhongsu, were willing to join my sect today, you would not be the first head of the sect and would have to start from the most ordinary position of registered worship. Zhongsu's face turned gloomy, but in the end he still did not get off the ship. Instead, he dropped the talisman with Oriole Island to let the group of disciples he had chosen board the ship. Chen Pingan had an honest talk with Zheng Qingjia before. Since he didn't know that Xuanhu Taoist fellows would come to Haoren Tianxia, he made a deal with Tao Ting, who had now turned into a Nen Taoist priest. The latter gave Jinquiching refining from the several secret techniques of the robe. The Nun Taoist will take 10% of all the profits, and both parties will settle the accounts every 60 years. Zheng Qingjia had a completely indifferent attitude towards this. He only said that Mr. Yin Guan did not need to care about Jinquicheng's opinion. The secret techniques of Jinquicheng weaving mastered by Senior Tao Ting were already slightly outdated old almanacs. Now Jinquicheng refines robes. His unique method is, don't come up with tricks, there are new ways. Not to mention that there are 9 continents in Haoren. No matter how good the sales of Jinquicheng's robes are, if they can capture the business share of 2 or 3 continents, it is already the limit of Jinquicheng's output. It is always easy for smart people to deal with smart people. In the world, southeast, northwest, there are always gatherings and separations and we need to go our separate ways. Chao Rong, the Tianjun of the Baiyu Jingnan Huaqing lineage, brought Zhao Fuyang back to Lingfei Palace, but his name will not be recorded for the time being. Let him retreat in a deserted Taoist temple on the top of a mountain to think about his mistakes, and allow him to practice and make amends for his mistakes. Zhao Rong gave Zhao Fiyang a decree. Whether he can become his direct successor depends on whether Zhao Fiyang can reach the nascent soul realm without taking the winding road. If he succeeds, he can become Zhao Rong's direct disciple. If not, he will be expelled from the mountain again and become a wild cultivator in the mountains until death. In addition, the dark and thin girl named Enai Qing really got the Taoist title of Qingni in the ethereal Lingfei Palace Patriarch Hall. She also became Chao Tianjin's personal disciple, and became the same generation of senior disciples as Xianhuan, the contemporary palace master named Dong Ting. Dreams come true, which always makes people want to slap themselves in the face to confirm whether it is true or false. The girl still remembers that in the darkness of the night, a young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown said to her, "Fellow Taoist Qingni, you and the two of us can kill 14 realms together." Fortunately, the Taoist priest who pretended to be clever and fooling around didn't forget to add another explanation to her: they are 14 first-level Qi practitioners. Many people and things in the world were just ordinary at that time. Fortunately, this woman who has the friendship of a fellow villager is now also practicing Taoism in Lingfei Palace, and occasionally comes here to disturb her practice. In fact, Enai Qing also knows what the other party has planned, but it doesn't matter, the mountain is not pure. It seems like I can even hear the sound of falling leaves clearly. It is always good to have someone to talk to and talk about hometown affairs. The woman's name is Yu Yiyo. She and her sisters Yu Rong and Yu were once the personal maids of Yu Chuanji, the master of Fanhuan Palace. They each had the opportunity to be blessed. Yu Yiyo worshipped a golden man from Lingfei Palace. Dan Dixian was his master, and he had just become a genealogy monk registered in the ancestral master hall of Lingfei Palace. Yu Rongyu also became a direct disciple of Xingzi, the Jingxian temple on the ancestral mountain of the Jianghu sect. Yu Yiyo was happy for his good sisters, but also felt that he was luckier. After all, Jingxianan was one of the downhill sects of Lingfei Palace. It's just that the two women reunited in a foreign land, but their generations are quite different now. Yu Yiyu, who has not yet been consecrated and has no title, has to call Enai Qing Grandmaster Qingni. The mountain goddess of the falling Yuan mountain also went to the Yunshao dynasty and was able to fill her vacancy, becoming a mountain goddess canonized by the imperial court. Lu Imo, a female martial artist, went to the Baihua Lake because Chao Tianjun made a special trip for her to send a vague decree, saying only that there was an opportunity there waiting for her to take it, and don't wait until the time comes. Lu Imo met an old monk who was reluctant to use this as a dojo at a ruined water palace. He was a slow-talking young monk, who had a catchphrase, "I am here, how about a bad temper?" Enai Qing could not always connect the sword-carrying boy and the young Taoist priest with the young hermit official and the headmaster by Yu Jinglu. "I always feel that those two guys are just like the two bachelors squatting at the end of the village, wearing tattered cotton-padded jackets with cotton wool exposed, sullen eyebrows and droopy eyes, hands in sleeves, looking at the passing women as if this is what they are." The Qingbai mansion in Chiseling did not move, nor did it suffer any military disaster. The owner of the mansion, Bai Mao, was so lucky that he couldn't figure it out. He always felt that Qing Qian, the old man, and the court of Qingxing Kingdom looked at him with admiration and favored him when they chatted for a few words. This is a bit outrageous. Palace Master Bai is puzzled. Could it be that my ancestors had great masters and were gods on the mountain? But when Bai Mao was young, he carefully looked through the family tree and found that there was no such thing. Bai Mao missed the two new friends he had just met very much. One liked to brag, and the other probably had to do some forced buying and selling because of his livelihood. Now Bai Mao will always think of how he seemed to have slapped the sword-carrying boy on the head by the well in the small town at the foot of Xuanhuan Mountain. If we meet again, will we try again? Luo Shan did not wait for Xiago, who was wandering around somewhere, but instead waited for the pair of master and disciple, Lao Defer and Yu Yu. At the gate of the mountain, the old deaf boy saw the white-haired boy who couldn't carry it clearly, an old acquaintance from the Sword Chi Great Wall prison. Because it was the first time for Yoyu to use the Three Mountains talisman, his realm was not high enough, and his body was not strong enough, so he felt dizzy just after he stood still and vomited. The white-haired boy originally thought that the old deaf boy was just a passerby on his family's hillside. As soon as he heard that the old deaf boy wanted to be his family's enshrinement, he immediately became unhappy. The old deaf child also saw that the other person barely had the word disgust written on his face and felt quite helpless. What was even more helpless was that the white-haired boy raised his chin. After being reminded, the old deaf child could only call out, "Grandpa." The old deaf child did not forget to speak from his heart. Before the old deaf boy became a formal worshipper, the white-haired boy started to put on small shoes for the other party. Haha, as soon as he had the power, he gave the order, "You doesn't need to introduce, I know it very well. Old deaf boy, you hurry up and report your name, Taoist number, place of origin and level of cultivation." The old deaf boy had no choice but to report his name Gontang, Taoist name Longxing, the location of the Taoist temple in the past, etc. At that time, Qin Pingan left Xuanhuan, and without outsiders the old blind man began to miss his beloved disciple. The old blind man showed mercy before the law. Seeing that the ascended realm lackey was protecting the path of his beloved disciple Li Huai and not causing a big problem, the old blind man just used the excuse that he had no merit and hard work and threw it to the young man. A Taoist ancient Taoist book, which is the first half of the mountain refining technique. Now Taoist Master Nen is digging a large tunnel in Tongye Island. In name, he is helping to move the mountain because of the good relationship between Li Huai and Qin Pingan. In fact, it is a true mountain building demonstration. Lian Hun is as generous as Tao Ting in the wilderness. Occasionally he will feel uneasy about his conscience. Could he be too resourceful and scheming too many hidden officials? As a result, the old man in yellow was patrolling in Dadu, trying to find out someone who was smashing talismans and delaying his mountain refining. In a daze he was caught in Xuanhuan. The young Taoist doesn't know what he did wrong again. How his Taoist heart has long been unimportant. It is just a piece of gall that may break at any time. Used to it. The old blind man smiled half-heartedly. "I heard that you have made a deal with Qin Pingan?" The young Taoist had a sad face and felt extremely sad in his heart. "Well, Qin Pingan, you're just trying to make some magic money from you, so why are you suing me here? If you want to grab money, just say so, why bother negotiating a deal?" The old blind man said, "Did I give you face?" The young Taoist shows his true body and goes to the ground. "Please stay." After waiting for a long time, but still not waiting for the old blind man's kick, the young Taoist raised his head, a little confused. The old blind man took out a Taoist book from his sleeve and threw it to the young Taoist's mouth. "Take it away." The young Taoist hurriedly grabbed the Taoist book, the second half of the mountain refining technique. The old blind man said, "If within 100 years you still can't join the Tao and can't compete with Zhu Yan, you can just lie there and enjoy the blessings in the Ascension realm for the rest of your life." The young Taoist transformed into a human form, holding the book in both hands, weeping with joy, and bowed to express his thanks. "Barbarian Peach Pavilion, I would like to thank my predecessors for their kindness in preaching." But the old blind man was so grateful to Tao Ting that he didn't take it seriously at all and just told him to get out of here so that he wouldn't be an eyesore. When the young Taoist returned to Dadu and Tongye's Hao and regained consciousness, there were two vague words lingering in his ears. "Now that you are in the Ascension realm, your vision is still narrow. When you see me, you are like a frog at the bottom of a well looking up at the moon. When you are lucky enough to reach the 14th realm one day, you will see me like a mayfly in the sky." Xiego also returned to Luapa Mountain, saying that he missed Shanzhu Qin and Guogua very much after wandering around for a few days. Qin Pingan said that he planned to let Xiaoma go to Qiaoyu Mountain to teach Taoism in the future. The underlying meaning of a certain sentence that goes unspoken could not be more simple. "Xiazishi, since your Xiaoma is not in the mountains for the time being?" Xiego immediately understood, rubbed the mink hat, and put on a posture of showing no one else but me, Mountain Master, I'll do it, I'll do it." When they arrived at Qiaoyu Mountain, the girl in the mink hat saw the 8 Qi practitioners and said straight to the point, "My name is Xiego, and I am Xiaomo's Taoist companion. In these days I will teach you well and you will learn well and try to stay. Drink my wedding wine with Xiaoma." The 8 people looked at each other in shock. They had thought of many ways to meet the preacher, but they never imagined that it would be such a person and such a scene. Xiego remembered the mountain master's instructions, so she added a few words. "One of my Taoist names is Bai Jing. He comes from the wild world and has beheaded several throne monsters." After the introduction he was ready to preach. Everyone cheered up. "You have to start hearing the truth." Ignoring the dumbfounded little guys, Xiego went to work on his own. "I heard that the mountain master planned to visit the Qianglin sect in Luzhou, Beiju in the near future." Xiego became energetic when he heard this and would not feel sleepy again. As for temporarily replacing Xiaoma and giving 8 wastes, well, you can't say that and you can't say that one day in the future. Some of them are the genealogy monks of the Jisa Peak Ancestral Master Hall. She helps them teach Taoism. Just a little bit from her fingernails is enough for these guys to learn it for hundreds of thousands of years. As for what to do in Xionglin's sect, Xiego didn't hesitate to ask, what else could be done? Either ask for swordsmanship or demolish the ancestral hall. Xiego was very happy about this. What a wonderful name I got. In other places, dogs fight against human power. It's good for the mountain owner, but the man is the dog's power. Sword of Coming Chapter 1229. Chapter 1229. A fresh story in life. It is easy to get drunk with wine, and there is no opponent in the world. Amidst the colorful clouds of the lonely city, the entire Baidi city was deserted except for Zheng Juzhong. Even the Lioli pavilion was thrown out of the city by Zheng Juzhong. After all, as a junior brother you have to listen to your senior brother. Lu Qiqing was helpless about this and did not dare to say no. However, he had to say goodbye to the city lord's senior brother in person before leaving. Zheng Juzhong looked at the tearful Lu Qiqing and sighed. Thinking of an old incident that was not big or small, Zheng Juzhong finally softened his heart for a rare moment. He appeared at the mountain gate and told his junior brother in pink robes, for example, if he got into trouble outside, he should not report it to his master easily. Name lest the other party dare not kill you. Lu Qiqing immediately understood that he could not give his master's name, he could only give his senior brother's name. Zheng Juzhong waved his hand to signal Lu Qiqing to stop standing there and being an eyesore. Lu Qiqing may be reluctant to leave, so he has nothing to say. He wants to confirm something from his heart. How many 14th realms does his senior brother have? As a junior, of course he wanted to believe it, but he really couldn't believe it. Zheng Juzhong smiled and asked, how many do you want? Lu Qiqing carefully said that of course the more the merrier, 2 is never too few, and 3 is never too many. Lu Qiqing asked his senior brother if he could go further. Zheng Juzhong saw a kind of worry in the other person's eyes, so he patted his shoulder and said with a smile, smart people are eager to learn, but fools are hard to be fooled. Don't think too much about things that shouldn't be used by you and just be your fool. If there are any chi practitioners in the world who would rather not be in the 14th realm and would be better off with someone else, Lu Qiqing must be one of them without any hesitation or even a trace of hypocrisy. Just like Zheng Juzhong back then, because he was hesitant about which path to choose to advance to the 14th realm, and had nothing to do, he set up a puppet to manipulate people both inside and outside, completely unaware that it was Zheng Juzhong who was killing Zheng Juzhong and himself. In short, in the conspiracy that engulfed the entire Baidi city, even Han Xiaoxia and his ilk were no exception. Only Lu Qiqing, wearing a pink Taoist robe, stood between one person and 10,000 people. He had no heroic words and no words. If he didn't say harsh words, Lu Qiqing would be crushed into a pulp by hundreds of sword lights, spells and magical powers in an instant. Even to his death, he still hated Han Xiaoxia and the others for their betrayal, worried about the safety of the senior brother behind him, and died. The moment before the message disappeared, pink-robed Lu Qiqing just looked back and said, "Senior brother, take care. There is a large scroll standing at the highest point of the colorful clouds, with the message Feng Rao is the best in the world. There is a stone table carved with a chessboard underneath, and 2 jars of chess pieces are placed on the table. Zheng Juzhong was sitting at the table with white pieces in the chess jar next to him. After waiting for an unknown amount of time, Zheng Juzhong changed the positions of the 2 chess pots, gently held his sleeves with one hand, and stretched out his with the other hand to twist a black piece from the chess pot. Judging from the posture, Zheng Juzhong will be the first to make a move on the chessboard. Making such an exception is contrary to what is written in the big banner. A woman with a tall figure and a rough face crossed 2 worlds, ignored the restrictions of Baidi City, and came here as if she were in a deserted land. She said cheerfully, "Long time no see, Huaixian." Zheng Juzhong turned a blind eye to her and ignored her. When the black stone on his fingertips was about to touch the chessboard, the woman lamented, "I'm really afraid of you, Zheng Juzhong. Tell me, call me over. What do you want? I have a gentleman's agreement with Dao Ancestor. My words and deeds should not cross the line. Please be considerate." Zheng is in the middle of the 314th realm. With his swordsmanship, Taoism, and magical powers, he is no better than one who is truly invincible. There is nothing to be ashamed of. You and Yudo are just competing, not life or death. The person who came was a collection of countless demons from the outer world. As he spoke, his appearance had changed and he became the old Taoist priest hanging at the highest place in Baiyujing, the Taoist ancestor in the eyes of Qing Ming. Zheng Juzhong threw the black chess piece back into the jar and asked, "Do you want to be free? Is there any existence in the world that is freer than the demon outside?" Since it is purely like this, how can it be said freely? The demon transformed outside sneered, "Just you?" Jianghu nodded and said, "It's up to me." It asked, "Is it just out of your imagination that you want to establish a religion and call yourself an ancestor? Then I have to ask you, Jianghu, what kind of religion do you want to establish and what kind of ancestor do you want to call yourself?" Before Jianghu could give an answer that would definitely shock the world no matter what the answer was, he laughed to himself and said, "I am the inner demon, the reflection, the external demon that everyone can kill, Jianghu. In the middle is the first demonic giant in the world. In this way it is indeed a perfect match. After refining this false 15 of me, your merits will be complete and you will be among the real 15th realm. From now on you will be unique." Killing the monks of the 14th realm is like cutting melons and vegetables? Jianghu slowly said 3 sentences. "I will help you break that immortal cage first. Let the heaven and earth be without spiritual energy, no spiritual masters, no gods of mountains and rivers, no spirit ghosts, no predecessors, no reincarnations, no yin and yang, no cause and effect. In the end, this world is left without education and ancestors." The demon of transformation shook his head. "It's not very interesting. I never thought that Jianghu, who I was most looking forward to meeting, would still be so boring. It's hard to escape the same old routine. Newcomers who follow the same path will at most go further than some of their predecessors. The gods are infallible and least free. To a certain extent, what possesses the purest freedom is that they transform into demons and are unrestrained. Each of their thoughts can be full of fun, flourish, and confuse truth and falsehood. What Jianghu calls breaking the cage is just to make it unfree. How dare the ordinary 14th realm dare to speak nonsense and be confident that it is better than the fake 15th realm in terms of Tao power? In the past 10,000 years, which of the 14 realms dared to refine it without fear of being burned through the intestines? Being occupied by a dove and a magpie's nest? Even if some people dare to think about it, they still dare not do it. Of course, what Jianghu wants to do, Daozu has already been able to do. However, in the 15th realm of Daozu, Hadao and the entire Qingming world, it is not suitable to do this, so he has to let it go free, or to be precise, it is raised in a jade mountain. Which is what the world calls Taoism. Someone rightly said, a Taoist eliminates inner demons like schooling, and schooling is like sweeping away fallen leaves from the heart, swirling and swirling, falling leaves fluttering and dust rising, swirling and swirling. Chang Rudeo ancestor is still a Taoist, unable to transcend this category. Faced with the inner demons that originate from all the Taoists in the world, they cannot be eliminated or refined. The reason for this is because the ruins of the ancient heaven have always existed and cannot be completely destroyed, and when Hai Zhomi, who ascended to heaven and left, abbots the new heaven and invites the gods to return to their thrones. Otherwise, the founders of the 3 religions can really reach an agreement and let the Taoist ancestors free their hands to refine the trillions of inner demons for thousands of years and serve as the great avenue for practitioners of the 15th realm to once again prove the Tao. It is impossible to say that the first 16th realm in the world is, which is what Daozu has in his pocket. Jianghu smiled and said, "It's quite interesting to be underestimated by an alien demon." Standing up, Jianghu looked at a very ordinary place in Baidi City. Following Jianghu's line of sight, the demon transformed outside saw a bamboo forest. It is raining from the sky, and in the new 14th realm, bamboo shoots are springing up after the rain. The tips of the bamboo shoots are about to come out, just like arches of yellow mud, tender and delicious. Spring bamboo shoots will grow very quickly, provided of course that they are not pulled out and eaten. They will have the opportunity to break out of the ground and grow into a green bamboo pole, and eventually become an old bamboo until bamboo flowers bloom. Even if Jianghu himself is a brand new 14th realm, Jianghu's 3 14th realms and 3 combined ways have nothing to do with the gifts given by the founders of the 3 religions. There is a watershed. Jianghu still belongs to the old 14th realm. As for Ning Yao, the number 1 person in the colorful world, she followed Qing Kingda's reminder and chose to retreat to hide from the rain, so only on the timeline Ning Yao is in the new 14th realm. Therefore, Jianghu's view of Ning Yao is no different from that of the old blind man named Jiji in Shirwanda Mountain. They both felt that Ning Yao's 14th realm was highly lethal. The once awe-inspiring Jia Sheng and later the wild and meticulous man, apart from the nickname Tong Tian Old Fox, given to him by others, Xuanhuan, which is more like a master's title, still needs to be better known to others. There are 2 theories about the sea of literature. One is that Zhouma's knowledge is as vast and profound as a bottomless sea, and the other is that Zhou created his own tens of thousands of wild characters called Shui Yun Shu. Throughout the underworld, there are also a small group of ghost monks who are well hidden in the underworld. The former are like the two ghost immortals in the immortal hairpin city, the old woman named Jianghu, hiding on the Xuanhuan road. The old woman lost her the treasure called Flaxen, the ghost fairy old woman who is really a mosquito, is complaining about herself, and the Wu Wei, the master of the Ascension Realm great demon Xuanpu, is also in a hidden dojo. In order to kill Qin Pinggan's ambition in the world, Wu Ti lamented that time waits for no one. Unexpectedly, the senior who had already reached the threshold seemed to be unable to cross that step. But before Wu Ti felt that there was still a chance, there was God's will in the dark. They all noticed some mysterious signs, and their Taoist hearts were shocked. This group of ghosts and immortals who had their own Taoist practices all unanimously sighed quietly, feeling empty in their hearts. A single plank bridge, first come, first served. They are both ghosts and destined to be cut off. I just don't know which old guy can achieve this kind of fortune. But in fact, the ghost Su Jun is still less than 50 years old. He just relied on his Taoist companions and reached the 14th realm by eating soft food. In Yuzhou, Qingming World, the new palace master of Huayang Palace in Defei Mountain turned out to be an outsider, with the pseudonym Mao Jue and the Taoist name White Bone. After Mao Jue deduced the result, he didn't have much resentment. He just looked calm and scolded the headmaster Lu with a smile. "You bitch, you are so cruel that you are even cheating yourself." Leap Moon Peak. As Lu Tai said before climbing the mountain, Zhang Fenghai, who is only half a step away from the 14th realm, can only cross that half step when the heavy rain falls on the world. That's just the way it is. Zhang Fenghai, who has already reached the Ascension realm, has made further progress without any doubts. Zhang Fenghai, who had read all the books in Yushu City at the age of 30, was imprisoned in Xianxia cave of Jinhue Palace for many years. In the end, he chose to betray by Yujing, join forces with Wu Fu and establish his own business. Under Lu Tai's help, a total of 6 people established a sect, which has been announced to the entire Qingming world. Zhang Fenghai was of course the sect leader, and Lu Tai, who had worked so hard and accomplished so much, was not only the chief minister as agreed, but also the deputy sect leader. Lu Tai lowered his head and crouched, holding a dog's tail with both hands, and staggered towards Zhang Fenghai who was drinking on the cliff. He said he had no eyesight and hurriedly congratulated the sect leader. Poor that dog, sensing Zhang Fenghai's majestic Tao Chi, he didn't dare to go but he couldn't help it so he had to whine. Lu Tai pulled the dog's tail and laughed loudly. "Sir, I'm very happy to congratulate you. Does the agreement we made earlier still count?" Previously, Lu Tai Gonghua said that there were some interesting young people in the wild world. According to Zhang Fenghai's deduction, before he could go one step further with Xinfeng, he would have to have 5 people in the Ascension realm to guarantee his trip to the wild world. It was not without accidents. But there were no big surprises. Lu Tai climbed up the pole and asked Zhang Fenghai and Xinfeng to work harder and work harder. Lu Tai threw the dog that couldn't get on the table, clapped his hands, sat next to Zhang Fenghai and asked in a low voice, "How do you say hard work?" Zhang Fenghai said, "One step becomes half a step." Today's martial arts attainments are probably equal to those of Lin Jiangxian 100 years ago. Lu Tai rubbed his hands and said, "We from a small family rarely go out to relax. We don't dare to expect to make achievements. If we don't have to worry about being slapped to death, that's probably enough." Zhang Fenghai nodded and said, "As long as you don't cause trouble everywhere, it won't be a big problem. The hard work is just a lip service." In fact, he has always wanted to visit other places in the world. Lu Tai sighed, "I am a person who travels around the world, always being kind to others and being honest in everything I do. He is not like Master Lu who can chat with a dog passing by on the roadside. No dog will pick up the Master Lu poops." Zhang Fenghai put the wine bottle on his waist, stood up, and looked back at the sect members who looked more or less expectantly. But before he, the sect leader, could say anything, the deputy sect leader put his hands on his hips and laughed. "We 6 masters plus 1 Lu Qin, how can we go anywhere in the world?" Lu Tai glanced at the lying Lu Qin, who immediately understood and opened his mouth and barked. Lu Bixia asked curiously, "The situation in Yinzhou was not bad before, could it be that ghost Su Jun? This female casual cultivator is at the pinnacle of the Ascension realm, and she is also one of the candidates for Qingming Tianxia." Lu Tai nodded and said, "The ability to eat soft food is the best in the world. I won't be convinced." Yuan Ying smiled and said, "Master Yin Guan has lost to Su Jun by a hair." 14th level Zhang Fenghai, Qingming's second best martial artist in the world, Lu Bixia, Lu Tai, and Yuan Ying, one of the 10 young candidates in the world, are the disciples of Xuanhuan. The 6 of them plan to go out to relax and explore the wild world. Of course, it's just a tour of the mountains and rivers, but if anyone dares to stop them from enjoying the mountains and rivers, let them become the mountains and rivers. Maybe a dog named Lu Qin will be added. The first place they stopped on their journey across the world was probably the Great Wall of Sword Qi that was broken into 2 parts and now in ruins. In the wild world, the top of the green mountain of Deyue. A girl in a black robe with braids stared intently at the skinny girl and asked a very rude question, "Are you the in this world?" The girl's eyes were dull, so the girl with braids walked around the girl, walked behind the girl again and kicked her in the knee. The girl knelt on her knees, her face still expressionless. The girl with braids nodded, now more satisfied with the height of both parties. She came to the girl's side and pitifully, it turned out that the girl's cheek seemed to have been tattooed, with the word burn carved in ancient bronze inscriptions. Who else could be able to carve this word on the girl's face besides Zhou Mi? Of course, the only person who can insult a girl so wantonly is Xiao Sun, the former hidden official who betrayed the Sword Qi Great Wall. Xiao Sun reached out and grabbed the girl's cheek, twisted it gently and asked, "What do you mean by burning the paste and following the sundial?" The dull girl nodded. Bai Zhe found her at that time. To be precise, she was found by Bai Zhe on her own initiative. She said that she gave herself a name, Dio Ku. She was born at the birth of the wild world, and worked hard with the martial artist of Liyue Peak in the Qingming world, the one in the Haoran world who once competed with the sage master. Her surname was Lu Mingxi, Zijuan, and Jujuan. Feng Yuan Xiao, the disciple Huang Ting found purely by luck in the colorful world. Wild dial engraving, Qingming hardworking, Haoran Lu Xian, colorful Feng Yuan Xiao, they are all of the same kind. To her, every immortal dojo and human city in the wild world is like the ink punishment carved on her face with a knife. The more spiritual energy condenses in this world, the more her body will be filled with pus. Scarred sores. Of course, this was related to her deep rejection of Tueshan Grand Ancestor and later Wenhai Zhoushan. If the two sides were in harmony and had a clear understanding of each other, these existences that made her miserable were just like the embroidered patterns on a beautiful dress. She doesn't recognize the Tao of the great ancestor of Tuoyue Mountain. To a large extent, she resents the other party for not being able to break through the Sword Qi Great Wall and not being able to take back the 100,000 mountains. It's as simple as that. And her disapproval of Wenhai Zhoumi comes more from Zhoumi's foreign status, which is a simple reason. Xiao Sun loosened her fingers and turned to look at the 3 sword cultivators who followed her here. Xiao Sun was obviously asking with his eyes, "How about it? Is my knowledge deep, high, scary or not?" Xiao Sun nodded to himself. Xiao Sun was in a good mood after guessing the riddle correctly. Sure enough, I became so powerful that even I felt terrible. Following Xiao Sun on this trip were 3 local sword cultivators from the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Luo Shan and Zhuan, both of whom were from the Yingguan lineage of the Old Summer Palace. There is also Zhang Lu, the great sword immortal who has been guarding the gate of Daoxin Mountain for many years and is still drunk at this moment. As for wine, the more you drink it, the more miserable you become, and the more you drink it, the more miserable you become. From the top of the mountain came 2 more powerful figures from the wilderness who had always been inseparable, Fei Ran and Zhou Qinggao. Xiao Sun asked, "What about the beast?" Zhou Qinggao corrected with a smile, "Chu Sheng." Xiao Sun turned his head, pricking up his ears to listen, and pretended to be shocked. "What, you said that Chu Sheng is a beast?" Immediately, her face was filled with astonishment, and she gave 2 thumbs up to Wenhai Zhoumi's closed disciple and praised, "A fairy the size of a sesame seed and a mung bean dares to insult and experience 14th realm like this. Zhoumi recognizes you as a closed disciple. Not without reason." Zhou Qinggao said with a smile, "You can't quarrel with me, senior. You shouldn't talk to me. I admit defeat." Xiao Sun pointed at the ground, "Kowtow a few times if you admit defeat and show some sincerity." Zhou Qinggao reached out and patted his forehead, "Although my junior level is low, I will only kowtow to my master in this life." Xiao Sun narrowed his eyes and reached out to grasp a braid. Zhou Qinggao shrunk his sleeves with his hands and secretly made 2 Taoist secrets so that he could run away at any time. This is how it is in the wild world. The higher the level of a monk, the less trouble he will have. On the contrary, the higher the level, the greater the trouble. Even if he is a close disciple in this wild world, he still cannot be regarded as having a life-saving talisman. And even sometimes, it will become a reminder. This is also the reason why Zhou Qinggao has to stay with Firen these years. Fei Ran smoothed things over and said, "Sell me a favor?" Xiao Sun stretched out his hand. Firen threw out a rusty bronze dagger without hesitation. Xiao Sun took it, waited a few times and found it was not bad. He nodded and said, "For your face I bought it." Xiao Sun then casually threw the ancient immortal sword to Luo Shan and said, "I can give it to the disciple you just accepted. Remember to make it clear to that ignorant girl that it was me who gave it to you." Zhang Lu said with a smile, "Why don't you give me a gift? I agreed to follow you to eat well and drink spicy food. Well, I've been hungry for 9 meals in 3 days and am so poor. Selling swords and buying wine sounds very heroic." Xiao Sun said, "Hey, be urgent, just wait a moment, the delivery person will be here soon." In their early years at the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Xiao Sun and Lu Ji were collectively known as fierce. Fei Ran looked at the newly appointed hidden official who had specifically told him not to mess with Zhou Mi before he ascended to heaven, and that he had to let it go and leave him alone. A 14th level sword cultivator who has refined the entire Savage Hall of Heroes seems not so pure. Another day after the heavy rain, the newly promoted sword cultivator of the 14th realm was outstanding. In fact, it is not pure either. Xiao Sun glanced at Firen and shook his head, disapprovingly. "As long as you are in the 14th realm and leave the barbaric world, you will probably have to kill people casually. Isn't it too frustrating? Let alone that old blind man, can he beat Ning Yao and Nen easy?" Fei Ran smiled and explained, "I'm different from you. I don't need the word pure. Don't even give it to me." Fei Ran and Dioku have become allies of the Taoist heart. She has also fulfilled the agreement she made with Zhou Mi, creating 2 branches of the long river of time in the wild world. So Firen, as the most justifiable co-leader of the wild world, and on the premise that Mr. Baizé is destined not to have a dispute with him, Firen has great hope of being able to reach the 15th level in the future. It just takes a short time. In this case, does Firen still have to fight for a pure sword cultivation in the 15th level? Can Zhou Zi be willing? Will Zheng Juzhong agree? Xiao Sun knew this and asked, "Fei Ran, why did you call me here?" Fei Ran said helplessly, "Senior refined the Hall of Heroes, right?" Xiao Sun asked back. "Back then, the great ancestor of Tuiyue Mountain, Wenhai Zhoushou, and the one who was scolded by Zhou Qinggao as a beast, didn't say that I couldn't run around with this patio?" Firen said, "So I have to ask seniors to come to Qingshan to talk about it. We can rearrange our positions so that we can do our own things in a legitimate manner in the future. No one will be disobedient to the other and everyone will think that the other is a waste. This time we entered in the Hall of Heroes, you can explain everything clearly and then sit down separately, which will save you a lot of trouble. It's a pity that Xiao Mo, who has been sleeping in the bright moon for thousands of years, took refuge with Chen Yingguan, causing Beijing to also betray the wild world. Otherwise, the 2 ascended realm sword cultivators, one at the peak and the other at perfection, would definitely occupy a place in the Hall of Heroes. Before that battle, the group of 14 old thrones in which Tuyueshan Grand Ancestor was first, Zhou Mi was second, and Lu Cha was third, were known as the most powerful and capable of fighting. Today's new set of thrones has too many people who have been promoted to fill the throne. It is simply a joke. Even Fei Ran, who doesn't take realm too seriously, feels a bit outrageous. Xiao Sun glanced at Zhou Qinggao. Fei Ran smiled and said, "He is the bottleneck of the immortal realm, and of course he is not qualified to enter the immortal realm now." Zhou Qinggao, whose Taoist name is Clog, his previous name became his Taoist name. Zhou Qinggao replaced Ziwu Meng's position as the wilderness heavenly stem and became the leader. He once rose directly from the 3 realms to the Yupu realm, and within a few years he became an immortal again, but now he is at a bottleneck. Xiao Xen smiled and said, "It seems that as long as you recognize a good master, your cultivation will be so smooth that people can envy you." Zhou Qinggao learned the lesson this time and didn't say anything. He swallowed the words, "It's a pity that this junior is the master's closed disciple." 2 more people came, a boy with double pupils, Li Gu, whose Taoist name was Fei Qian. After being woken up by Baizé, Li Gu recovered 8 valuable immortal weapons from all over the wilderness in one breath. There was also a man who looked like he hadn't woken up all day, yawning. His name is anonymous. Li Guan had a yellow Qingkuan bag and a purple demon-catching gourd tied around his waist. After waking up, Li Gua's previous path of refining things and combining Taoism with Taoism has been occupied by Taiyin, the female crown in the world of Qingming, but Li Gua had already prepared a candidate path for himself. A book city doing the opposite, the north is king. That beautiful lady has clearly succeeded in joining the Tao. Instead of showing off, she found a hidden dojo with no trace and hid. On the other hand, Li Gu, who looked like a young man with heavy pupils, came to this mountain with his best friend, Anonymous, and came to meet Fei Ran and Xiao Xian openly and honestly. Li Guo waited until the rain stopped in several worlds before he successfully merged with the Tao. It was Zhou Mi who gave way to a road, not just a way but could even be said to have paved a whole road, allowing Li Guo to go directly to the 14th realm. Because before Zhou Mi ascended to heaven, he gave something to Zhou Qinggao, which was a pile of text engravings. It was Zhou Mi's self-created Yunshuishi book of the wild world. In this way, Li Guo replaced Zhou Mi as the master of words in the wild world, and could enjoy the gift of a great avenue brought by the circulation of words in the world. Anonymous glanced at the little girl, with braids and sighed. Since Zhou Mi had left behind the objects and people who controlled the wilderness cultural destiny, the military destiny of this world would naturally be no exception. Xiao Sun pointed at the young man's demon-catching gourd at his waist and curled his fingers. Without saying a word, Li Gu took off the golden gourd and threw it to Xiao Sun. Xiao Sun slapped Zhang Lu, stared straight at Li Guo and asked, "You won't give it to me until there's a fight? This is not as simple as robbing something. It is equivalent to asking the person whose money was robbed, 'Why don't you chop me up first and then hand over the thing?'" Li Guo said, "Nowadays these external things are dispensable to me." Xiao Sun said angrily, "This is a bit too much." One punch shattered Li Gu's body. Li Guo instantly returns to its original appearance. Xiao Sun didn't feel that his efforts were in vain, just punching one after another until Li Gu exploded and then reunited. It was just fun. Taking advantage of Xiao Sun's lack of time to talk to him, Fei Ran asked softly, "Do you regret not cooperating with Zhou Mi back then?" Dian Ke nodded and said hoarsely, "I'm so sorry. If she is willing to accompany Zhou Mi to kill the vast world, the wild demon clan may be able to take over the Aquarius continent and level the Great Barrier with corpses. She might have eaten that comrade now, and she could become 1.5 masters of the 2 worlds of wilderness and Howran." Fei Ran asked from the bottom of his heart, "Become a Taoist partner with me, will you not regret it again?" The girl with a paralyzed face and dull eyes suddenly smiled and hesitated. She stretched out her white and dry fingers and gently grabbed Fei Ran's wrist. She blushed slightly, lowered her eyes and said shyly, "You are very warm." Fei Ran laughed dumbly, held her cold hand with his backhand, turned to look at Xiao Sun and said with a smile, "Just a reminder, I won't do this next time." Xiao Sun glanced sideways and curled his lips. For the first time he didn't say anything back. He nodded. "The young couple will live a good life from now on. Li Guo helped me pay for my share of the money." Fei Ran smiled and clasped his fists in thanks. Xiao Sun muttered, "What a stupid scholar, they are all carved from the same mold." One after another group of veritable wild monsters were summoned by Fei Ran to discuss matters, leaving senior Xiao Sun not to wait too long. Among the 14 great demons of the old throne, there is Zhu Yan, the ancestor of the mountain-moving people. The new owner of Yiluo, his concubine Fei. The great demon of the new throne has the sword Immortal Ribbon Minister. As the first disciple of Wenhaizhou, he is an Ascension Realm sword cultivator. He carries 6 swords in a sword box on his back and wears an emerald green robe called Biaojiao Lian. When Zhou Qinggao saw Shou Qin, he bowed and saluted and called senior brother. Shou Qin nodded with a smile. There is also the big demon official Xiang with white eyebrows, hair and robes, who is obsessed with persuading the young hermit official to become Taoist companions with his granddaughter. A direct disciple of the great ancestor of Tuoyue Mountain with the Taoist name Xuanhuan, a woman in the Ascension Realm, and Formation Master, and also a martial artist at the end of the realm. A tall monk wearing brilliant golden armor and a mask. Even Fei Ran didn't know this person's Tao roots and true identity. There is a female crown, Taoist name is Rowei. The Taoist crown on her head is unique in the world. There are lotus flowers on the lotus and there is a fish tail on the lotus. She was the great demon xuanhuan from the old throne who was killed by 3 corpses. After Zhou Mi ate xuanhuan, he returned all the secret treasures to her. In the end, Bai Zhe took the 2 of them, slowly climbing the mountain together. The 2 ancient demons like Li Gu and Wu Mingshi were the ones who were woken up by Bai Zhe himself. A beautiful woman, official Yi, with the Taoist name Shuezong. There is a short, stooped old woman with 5 colors of Tao Qi all over her body. Every time the old woman steps up the steps, the tiger in this green mountain will feel more pressure and must use her magical powers to offset the weight of the Tao. Zhu Yan, who was standing on the railing, saw the old woman and wiped his mouth. Since they are not in the 14th realm, do they all have a chance? The old woman raised her head, smiled and pointed at Mr. Baizé in front of her, indicating to Zhu Yan, which one is more important, harmony or life? Fei Ran smiled and asked, Mr. Baizé, Wang Youwu must be absent today? As for that Hutu, he is also an ancient demon who has lived for 10,000 years, but he is no longer here. Baizé said, we're here. As he spoke, Baizé, the newly promoted monk king of the 14th realm who thought he was hiding well, was randomly taken out of the hidden dojo by Baizé and forced to appear next to Guanyi, a hall of valor, the new throne of the wild. At the highest place all the people in the world are outstanding. The second highest position is Baizé, who returned from the vast world to the wilderness. Of course, if Baizé wanted to sit in the highest position, no one, including Fei Ran, would have any objections. They would not dare to say anything with their mouths, and they would not dare to say anything in their hearts either. Third, the incarnation of the great road in the wild world, the girl's dial. Xiaosun was fourth and she was not happy. She stared at the dial that had just received her share of the money, and the girl took the initiative to change seats with Xiaosun. Baizé didn't say anything to this and Firen didn't say anything either, so they just switched places. Xiaomin put his hands on his hips and laughed loudly. If you don't dislike it, I will treat this as your bridal chamber and have a son soon. The ancestor with both hands on crutches is rising. Li Guo's Qinghuan bag and demon-catching gourd were no longer around his waist. A beautiful king with a bamboo crown and a deer. These three are all in the 14th realm. After that, Wu Mingxi, the best martial artist in the wild world, reached the Ascension realm. Zhu Yan, the second official, is a short old woman whose name and pseudonym are unknown to anyone. Concubine Fei, ministers, official Ali, new makeup, catkins, the golden armor shrouded in clouds and mist is as mysterious as the old woman. In the wild world there are 17 new throne demons. But Baizé said, wait a moment. In an instant, a strong female martial artist opened, or rather forced open, a door with both hands, and strode out from the cold world of countless innocent souls and ghosts. When she stepped through the door, heaven and earth began to collapse. Martial arts were rolling and shaking like thunder rushing here. She raised her hands and rolled up her black hair, revealing a beautiful face without eyebrows. When she took another step forward, both feet crossed the door, and again a gift of martial arts came to her from Hauran, the wilderness, and the Buddhist kingdom in the west. She only took 2 steps and she went from being at the end of martial arts to being at the highest level of energy, to returning to her true state, and then to being divine again. The world is vast. At the Tianxia mansion in Longhu Mountain, the 10-tailed Tianhu Lianzhen prostrated himself on the ground to greet the Tianxia Zhao Tianlai who had successfully escaped from seclusion. In a mountain house in the early morning after the rain, the lotuses are turning, the cherries are on fire, and the pomegranate flowers are in bloom. The flowers are fluttering with bees and butterflies, just like the division of spoils in the spring of the world. Lu Qi sat under the eaves and sighed softly. Without the most proud person in the world standing in the way, she was finally successful. Suzy was heroic, so he probably wouldn't mind this matter. In Luzhou, Beiju, Lu Juba walked out of the family ancestral hall, turned his head and looked at the stretch of 37 peaks on the same continent, thoughtfully. Western Buddhist country. A gilt copper mandala was erected with countless prayer pillars. Someone was preaching here, and a ray of sky broke through the layers of fog like a glass of wine and slowly landed on the top of the human world. A monk who has been reincarnated 80 times finally remembers all his previous lives in this life. There is a river beside the monk, a boat on the riverside and a carriage on the bank. Qingming Tianxia. The deputy city lord of Nanhua City, Mrs. Wei has perfected her merits. An ancient battlefield site, in the deserted wilderness, there is only a lonely cold temple, which is dedicated to the most holy master, Buddha and Taoist ancestors, named Xianxia Temple. In the temple, there was a young man wearing a Taoist crown but also a cassock and a jade pendant. He was sitting on a futon. Under the slightly trembling futon, something was suppressed. Every time this person breathes out, he is dispersing his own path and helping the souls of those heroes and souls to open up a path to the world of Fengdu. They don't know how many thousands of years have passed in this world. The young man raised his hand, wiped his tears and murmured, I have accumulated external skills, my heart is flawless, and I am a true Taoist priest. There was an aggressive knock on the door, but someone was knocking on the door with a sword in its scabbard. The visitor outside the door was none other than monk Jianghu, who had just entered the 14th realm. In a place called Wuxia Mountain, there is a young man, who has never stepped out of this mountainous area since he was young. With the help of a Taoist book, he has been practicing silently until now. After confirming that he has indeed entered the 14th realm, this young man, the young man who told himself time and time again to go out and have a look at a higher realm, regretted it every time and told himself he would do it next time. Now he still has no intention of leaving the mountain and continues to hide, becoming a woodcutter who chops wood, burns charcoal, and makes his own wine. I don't want to know you and you don't need to know me. The season after the rain, the new 14th realm. Within 100 years there would be many more. In an inconspicuous little Taoist temple, an old man named Changgung was reading at night. He picked up a saltwater peanut and threw it into his mouth, chewing it carefully. Opposite the table, there was a man lying on the table, complaining about the heavy workload of Taoist subjects. The young man and the old man smiled and said, "Chin Tsung, your ability to pick names is actually not bad. One day in the future, the two of them will become one and walk in this world as a true Chin." The boy in cotton-padded clothes didn't take such vague and strange words seriously. Now that the Taoist temple has changed its owner, the rules are even stricter. When he thinks of getting up early to do the homework tomorrow, Chin Tsung sighs, reaches out to touch the plate and grabs a piece. Throwing the salted peanuts into his mouth, but not forgetting to give the old man a few remaining ones from between his fingers, the young man stood up, smiled narrowly and said vaguely, "Uncle Chang, eat slowly, I will go to bed first and tomorrow morning, I will definitely help you clean the yard, make it clean." The old man smiled and said, "It's still early. Can I tell you a story?" Chin Tsung hesitated and said, "Don't let this be a ghost story. You know, I'm a timid person." "Well, if it's something sexy, that's not impossible." The old man stretched out his fingers to twist the wick and said with a smile, "This story has everything." Occasionally he would get a little depressed. This kid was quite lively by nature and deserved a beating. Chin Tsung sat back on the stool, put his hands on his chin and said seriously, "Uncle Chang, can you make up a story in which I will be the protagonist? I can add you as the master." The old man nodded and said, "Okay, this is a fresh story about senior brother Chui Chan and junior brother Chen Pingan learning Taoism together. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.